Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku became the Phoenix Hero Part 2. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 3, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story, NezutheRatGod from Wattpad. So let's start the video. Izuku looked around and saw that he was in the water zone and a massive ship was behind him. "Come down here, boy," said a villain, grinning. "It's nothing personal, but we gotta kill you." Izuku glared at him and shot out a massive stream of flames at the water that quickly started to boil the water near it and kept the villains a distance. "I'm sorry, this is all my fault," said Eri while sobbing. "No, Eri, it isn't, I promise. You're not to blame here. It's all these villains that are the cause of this," said Izuku. "𝗵𝗵𝗲!" yelled Tsu and ♯♯ sitting on the ship, waving him over. Izuku quickly flew over and landed on the ship with them. "What the heck, why are we being attacked?" said ♯♯, confused. "Who knows, but we have to get back with all the others," said Izuku. "But how will we do that, 𝗵𝗵𝗲? We're surrounded by villains," said Tsu. Izuku was silent, thinking everything over before an idea popped in his head. "Eri, I need you to stay with these two. I'll be right back, I promise." "What? No, please don't leave," yelled Eri as she grabbed him tightly and started to cry. "Eri, it's okay, I'll be right back," said Izuku as he gently put her down. "I need you to be a hero and be strong for us, okay?" Eri continued to cry but nodded her head and reluctantly let go of him as he stood up and glared at the villains. "You made her cry and are trying to kill my classmates," said Izuku as he slammed his fist into his open palm. "You're gonna pay." What does this kid think he can do? He has a fire quirk and we have 𝗬𝗧𝗪. He was cut off when Izuku appeared above him, kicking him to the bottom of the lake and created a massive vortex in the lake, dragging most with him. "So, who's next?" said Izuku with a grin like Himiko's when she gets a little BLD crazy. Before the rest of the villains could react or retaliate, Izuku shot forward and took out a good amount of them before the others swam under the water. Izuku looked down and placed his hand on the water and created flames too intense that they shot through the water and boiled most of the villains in the water and made them float up, now being unconscious. He then flew over to the others who were staring at him in awe but was quickly enveloped in a hug from Eri. "I am killing every one of these," screamed Katsuki as he saw Himiko on the ground unconscious with a serious head injury. "They hurt his sister in all but BLD and now he was out for BLD. Kill this 𝗧𝗪." He was cut off by a massive explosion that burned a good amount of his body and sent him flying into a building. "I'm gonna murder you all," said Katsuki with an evil grin and started to cackle as he saw the fear in their eyes. "How do 𝗵𝗵𝗲 and him get along so well?" asked Momo, looking at Jiro and Denki. "Your guess is as good as mine. Just glad he's on our side," said Jiro. They watched as he continued to brutally beat the villains, especially the one that hurt Himiko. They all winced when he used an explosive kick and hit him in the ball, and they all swore they heard something break. Katsuki turned around and shot out a massive explosion, sending them flying away. Laid on the ground barely conscious and was on the brink of passing out from the pain she was in. "Now that she's dealt with, I think I can kill most of you," said Kurojirai. "You need to get to UA as fast as you can to alert the teachers," said Ochako. "What? But I can't do that. I have to st-. Ida, I don't have time for yours, so just do as I say," said Ochako, glaring at him with anger in her chocolate brown eyes. "We'll create a distraction and you need to get out as fast as you can," said Mina, getting her acid ready. He gritted his teeth but nodded his head in understanding. Tokoyami shot Dark Shadow forward and tried to swipe at Kurojirai, but he dodged it. Kurojirai then had to dodge an attack from Shoji and Sato, who were throwing massive boulders at him, unaware they were leading him to the trap. Just as he dodged another boulder, he felt unimaginable pain on his side as he saw that acid hit his metal collar. Aya! He fell to the ground, and once he hit it, Zero and Tokoyami used their respective quirks and held him down, restraining him. "Ida, go now!" yelled Ochako. Ida gritted his teeth but quickly ran to the door and managed to force it open and escape, heading for UA. They never noticed Kurojirai was slowly opening a portal so he could escape. Izuku, Eri, Tsu, and ♯♯ were running down the side of the lake, heading towards the center of the USJ so they can find the others and leave. As they were running, the 𝗬𝗏 arrived but froze from what they saw. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟 was bloody and broken. Both his arms looked shattered, his face was bludgeoned, and his entire body was bathed in his own blood. A massive creature was above him, pinning him to the ground and slowly squeezing the life out him. "Good work, Nomu," said Shigaraki, walking up and scratching his neck. "I'm sorry, Tomura, but one student managed to get away," said Kurojiiri, appearing next to him. "If you weren't our ride out of here, I'd kill you myself," said Shigaraki, scratching his neck more. "I think it's time we call it quits and leave." "You hear that? I think they are leaving," said 𝗬𝗏. "Something seems off," thought Izuku, glaring slightly. "But first, maybe I should kill some kids first," said Shigaraki as he charged forward at extremely fast speeds that shocked everyone. His hands were inches away from Eri's face, and pure fear entered her body when he almost grabbed her. Before his hand touched her face with his hand, he felt intense heat and killer intent. Izuku's hand flung forward and punched him in the face and sent him flying and slammed against the ground strong and ragdolled before Nomu caught him. "That hurt," said Shigaraki, glaring at him. "Also, that's some pretty intense killer intent. Heroes shouldn't do that." Izuku glared at him and stood up. "𝗀𝗏𝗧, take Eri and 𝗧𝗏𝗧 with you while I deal with them." "Deku, please don't go," said Eri desperately. "Shimura, are you sure?" asked 𝗫𝗏𝗧, worried for his classmate. "I am so, please hurry," said Izuku as he pried Eri off him, ignoring her screaming and crying. "Please be safe," said 𝗬𝗏 as she picked up Eri and ran off with 𝗫𝗏𝗧, who was carrying 𝗧𝗏𝗧. "Deku! Deku!" yelled Eri as she desperately tried to get back to him. It hurt Izuku to do this, but he had no choice. It was his job to protect the class and Eri, and he wasn't going to let these villains hurt them anymore. The old noble sacrifice. "How stupid for someone who's gonna die," said Shigaraki. "Nomu, kill him." Nomu charged at Izuku and swung its arm down on him, with him raising both his arms up and blocking it, but felt his legs almost buckle. "Dimin, he's almost as strong as Toshi," thought Izuku as he tried to push its arm off him. Izuku created an arm made of flames and had them slam into Nomu's stomach, but it didn't even flinch. "Oh yeah, he has shock absorption as well," said Shigaraki nonchalantly. Izuku grunted and created some flames on his arms and burned the Nomu's arms off and jumped back. He then saw the arms immediately grow back and he charged at him. Izuku created his phoenix wings and flew up and created a fire sword and tried to slash him, but the Nomu just shrugged it off like nothing. "Flash fire!" yelled Izuku as he sent a torrent of blue flames at the Nomu, which engulfed it, but it was negated when it clapped its hands and dispersed the flames. Said Izuku as he charged at it and decided to try and beat it into 𝗬𝗵𝗃. He used his superhuman strength and cover his hands in intense blue flames to damage the Nomu even more. They both collided, with Izuku using his smaller size compared to the Nomu to duck under its attack and counter it by slamming his fists or kicks to its 𝗧𝗓 or sides, but he was still getting hit, and it was only thanks to durability and healing he was standing. To everyone else, they were just blurs fighting, but Izuku's classmates and Eri could see he was starting to get seriously injured. "Howitzer impact!" screamed Katsuki as he flew above the Nomu and blasted it with his most powerful explosion. He landed next to Izuku and saw him covered in injuries but was starting to heal. "You okay, Izuku?" said Katsuki. "Peachy." Just then Shoka and Kirishima arrived as well. "Where everyone else?" said Izuku. "They are all heading to the entrance," said Kirishima. Izuku took a quick look and saw everyone but Ida and the people down here were up there looking worried. "Okay, then leave, I'll hold them off till backup arrives," said Izuku as he popped his shoulder back in place. "What no?" said Katsuki, but was cut off by Kirishima screaming, "Bakubiro, look out." Katsuki turned and saw the Nomu's fist inches away, while its other arm was aiming for the others, and the next thing he knew, him and the others were shoved away. "What just happened?" said Shoka, confused. They all turned and saw Izuku's body laying on the ground 50 feet away, but his entire upper half was gone. "Deku!" screamed Eri, panicking, and her horn started to glow, but 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟 used the last of his strength to activate his quirk on her. "Hee-hee-hee-ha! That's what you get, you hero!" screamed Shigaraki. Class 1A looked in at horror at Izuku's body and couldn't move a muscle. Katsuki started to have flashbacks to when they were kids and the villain Muscular killed Izuku. "Nomu kill them," said Shigaraki, but noticed he wasn't moving. "Nomu kill them." "How dare you," growled a dark voice coming from Izuku's direction. They looked and saw Izuku's body get covered in flames and turned to ash before looked to be reformed and was glaring at Shigaraki. "How dare you filthy humans!" yelled Izuku as his entire body exploded in flames and the heat of the flames started to melt everything near him. The entire USJ was starting to turn into a giant oven and was rapidly getting extremely warm. Katsuki recognized that voice that was speaking from Izuku, and it wasn't him, it was Fox. "You disgusting creatures kill, murder, pillage, and destroy everything in your paths, and now you killed Izuku," said Fox through Izuku. "I'm going to eradicate your existence from this planet." Izuku's body started to glow and change, and it looked as if his body was made of fire. His pupils became slits, and every once in a while they saw black flames come out. "You kill him. Kill him now," yelled Shigaraki, feeling fear enter his body. Nomu charged at Izuku and his arm swung at him, and Izuku lifted his arm and blocked it, shocking everyone. "Sun's destruction," said Izuku as he created a tiny ball of flames in his hand that was making a high-pitched noise. After a couple seconds he released the move and it destroyed everything in its path. Kurogyari quickly made a portal and moved him and Shigaraki out of the way to dodge the attack, or they would have been burned alive. Izuku led up on the attack and the Nomu was embedded in the ground with the concrete melting around him, acting as a makeshift cage on him. Shigaraki ran towards him and placed his hand on Izuku's face and grinned evilly before he felt unbelievable pain. "Ah!" screamed Shigaraki as black flames appeared on his hand and were burning his hand away. He ran and plunged his hand in the water, but the flames were still there burning his hand. Before he could do anything, the flames burned his hand away, so now he was missing it. "Now for your other hand," said Izuku as he started to walk towards him with Shigaraki backing away in pure terror. "And Nomu kill him. Kill him now. Kill this monster." Izuku looked over and saw the Nomu charging at him with most of its body still being covered in burns, and he scowled at it. "Stop," said Izuku right before Nomu's hand hit his face. It froze in pure fear when Izuku's eyes stared right into the Nomu's very soul. He then lifted his hand up and placed it on its rest. "Now, you've suffered enough pain because of this man." The Nomu was covered in white and gold flames that started to burn it. But no one except for Izuku saw the person who was turned into the monster smile and tell him thank you, before he finally disappeared to finally rest in peace. "And no Nomu was meant to kill. All Might, how are you alive?" screamed Shigaraki, still holding his stump and feeling the phantom pain. Izuku was about to respond when the door was slammed open and the UA staff was there, and so was All Might. And All Might was, "Who hurt my students?" said All Might as each step he took cracked and shook the ground. The few conscious villains that were nearby quickly surrendered from the gaze alone. Shigaraki was about to scream, but Kurogyari opened a portal, making their escape. Fox, seeing the threat was finally over, released Izuku's body from his control and his body went back to normal and he fell to the ground unconscious. "The!" yelled Eri as she finally managed to wiggle her way out and ran to him and quickly got up to him and started to shake him. "Deku! Deku, please wake up," said Eri before she whispered something that felt right for some reason. "Papa, please wake up." Nezu scowled at the sight of the USJ and how the students were hurt. "Eret, the villains, I don't care if they end up in the ICU." The staff nodded and quickly started to arrest the villains, and Class 1A ran to Izuku to make sure he was okay. Izuku slowly opened his eyes and saw that he was in the infirmary room at UA. He tried to lift his arm up but noticed a weight on it and saw that Eri was laying on his arm and had tear stains on her cheeks. "I'm sorry I put you through that, Eri," thought Izuku as he reached his free arm over and gently placed it on her head and rubbed it. Noticing she instinctively leaned more into it. He was interrupted when the door opened and Recovery Girl walked in with All Might, Nezu, Tsukachi, and Nana behind her. "Are you feeling all right, Izuku?" said Recovery Girl walking up to him. "Yeah, Granny Chio, I'm feeling okay, just exhausted," said Izuku. "Are you sure, Izuku?" said Nana walking up to him and placing a hand on his forehead. "Grandma, I promise I'm okay. Fox healed any injury I get, remember," said Izuku. "That won't stop me from worrying about you," said Nana as she sat down. "Forgive me, 𝗵𝗲𝗧𝗏, but I have some questions I have to ask," said 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁, sounding apologetic. "It's okay, I understand," said Izuku as he got himself a little more comfortable in the bed. "Ask away. Is there any information you can give us on that creature you fought?" "Police tried to scan its remains, but there was nothing left of it except ash," said 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁. Izuku laid back and sighed. "It was powerful, its punches were as strong as yours, Toshi. Its healing was terrifying. No matter the injury I have it'd just heal itself in seconds like nothing happened." The others in the room nodded. They all saw the recording, but they needed to hear from a first-hand account on what happened. "That thing was terrifyingly fast and I couldn't hold back at all to even hold my ground against him. Then at one point Katsuki and a couple others came to try and help, but the Nomu tried to kill them. Before I knew it, my body moved on its own and I shoved my friends out of the way and took the hit for them," said Izuku. As Izuku said that, everyone sent a look towards All Might and saw the look in eyes. He's finally found the successor he's been looking for all this time. I ended up being killed and Fox was, well, he was beyond and he took the reins and in a sense combined our bodies together and made a form that he calls Phoenix form. It essentially increases my power tenfold and makes all my attacks even stronger and gives me easier access to the black flames of hell that he told me about once. I'm not allowed to use till I learn to control my emotions better and are my heaven flames, said Izuku. As he said that, Nana gently grabbed his hand when he mentioned he was killed and Eri scooted closer to him in her sleep. "I see, well, thank you, 𝗵𝗲𝗏, I appreciate all this information, and don't worry, I'll make sure your insane healing isn't known," said 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 as he bowed and left. "How's Aizawa and the others?" said Izuku. "The students are fine. The only one that got seriously injured was Toga, who got a head injury, but now she's fine. Aizawa, on the other hand," said Recovery Girl as she walked over and pulled back some shades to show him laying on a bed covered in bandages. Most of his bones were broken and he had a severe head injury and permanent eye damage. He'll be in recovery for over a month. Izuku looked at him in sadness that he wasn't fast or strong enough to heal his teacher. "Let me heal him." "Are you sure, Izuku?" said Nana. "What do you mean heal me?" came Aizawa's muffled voice. "Aizawa-sensei, I can heal any injury on someone with my quirk. It's called Phoenix, but we lied on its full capabilities so the Hero Association or government doesn't find out about it, to keep me safe," said Izuku. "So in other words, your powers are exactly like a phoenix's and you can heal from any injury and heal any injury someone else has," said Aizawa. "Yes. If you heal me I won't say a word, problem child. Your secret is safe with me," said Aizawa. "Even if you don't, I won't say anything." Izuku nodded his head and stood up while holding Eri since she refused to let go of him in her sleep. He walked over to him and looked at Recovery Girl. "I'm gonna need you to remove his bandages on his face. I don't know how my flames will react to healing someone's head, so I'll have to use my tears." Recovery Girl nodded and proceeded to remove the bandages, and they all saw Aizawa's bruised and cut-up face that had a nasty scar under his eye. Izuku leaned over and let a single tear escape his eye, and it landed on his face, and the effects were almost immediate. His injuries started to fade away and his blood-shot eyes went back to normal. There was no sign of injury after 2 more tears. Aizawa looked at Izuku wide-eyed at seeing this and now fully understood why they needed to hide this, but he was even more shocked for what happened next. Izuku's hand ignited in white and gold flames and he put them on Aizawa's, and Aizawa felt all his bones healing. All his stress and tiredness left his body and he felt like he could run all day and still have enough energy to fight all night. 𝗧𝗵𝗲𝗏. "Thank you," said Aizawa, still trying to wrap his head around a quirk that was that powerful at healing and had no side effects. "It's no problem, Aizawa-sensei, it's the least I could do, besides I did the same for Toshi." "It's true," said All Might as he lifted his shirt showing his nasty scar. "I got this from a villain and I was told it will kill me. But thanks to my little brother I can still be a hero and I'm still as strong as ever, but I know soon I will have to allow the next generation to take my place." "If he healed you, then why do you still have a scar?" said Aizawa, watching Recovery Girl remove his cast and all his bandages. "To remind myself of that day and that I am not invincible and I can be killed," said All Might. Nana was making some food for Izuku and Eri. She looked over at the two in worry. It was the next day, and since then Eri has become even more clingy. She was pretty sure the only time they separated was when one of them had to go to the bathroom. She was worried that if they find her parents or a guardian they'd have to separate them. She was knocked out of her thoughts when she heard the doorbell and walked over to it and opened the door to see 𝗵𝗃𝗀 and May. "Oh May, 𝗵𝗃𝗀, it's lovely to see you too, how are you?" said Nana smiling. "We're doing good Nana," said 𝗵𝗃𝗀 smiling. "Katsuki and Ochako wanted to come but they are with their families." "Oh don't worry, it's okay, I understand," said Nana. "Izuku and Eri are both inside if you want to see them." Both girls nodded and walked inside the house and saw both of them on the couch with Eri in Izuku's lap holding his hands. "Hey Izu," said both of them walking towards him. "Oh hey May, 𝗵𝗃𝗀, what's up?" said Izuku. "See, can we talk to you in private please?" said May with a sad look in her eyes. Sure." "Hey Eri, stay with grandma." "Okay, I'll be right back, I promise," said Izuku. Eri tightly hugged him and nodded her head. Izuku leaned down and her forehead, which made her feel better. "Okay Deku. But please come back soon," said Eri as she reluctantly let go of him and went to Nana, who was in the kitchen. Izuku then stood up and followed both of them as they led him to his room and entered it. "So what's you dash?" He was cut off when May hugged him and buried her face in his and hot tears rolling down her cheeks. "I was scared, I heard what happened and I was scared I'd lose you like we almost lost you all those years ago," said May. 𝗵𝗃𝗀 walked up to him and hugged him too while crying. "I'm sorry but I had to do it to protect everyone," said Izuku as he hugged them both. "But you were killed," said May sobbing. "But I'm back and I promise I won't be leaving anytime soon," said Izuku. May looked at him with tears still streaming down her face and threw logic out the window and let her heart take control. She lunged forward and him pouring all her emotions into this embrace. Izuku's eyes widened upon this and slowly her back. May pulled back and looked at him. "I love you me, 𝗵𝗃𝗀, Ochako, and I'm sure some other girls love you Izuku, so please don't do anything like that again." Izuku was about to say something when 𝗵𝗃𝗀 reached up and him too. It was a much more gentle embrace but he could still feel all her emotions. She poured into this embrace and felt her tears still streaming down her face. "Izuku, we love you," said 𝗵𝗃𝗀. "But I don't want to choose between any of you," said Izuku, not wanting to hurt any of them. "Izu, polygamist relationships are accepted in nowadays society, it's just you don't see or hear about it much. And both me and May are okay with sharing you and I already know Ochako is okay with it," said 𝗵𝗃𝗀. Izuku stood there in shock, unsure what to say or do. "You know you love them and don't deny it, so just tell them how you feel," said Fox. Izuku took a deep breath and took one of their hands each. "I'll be honest as well. I've loved all of you for a long time but I was too dense to realize it and I was too scared to say anything because I didn't want to hurt any of your feelings, but if you're okay with it then I'll be too since I love all of you," said Izuku. Both of them smiled and him again, which he happily returned. All of them went back down to the living room and sat on the couch and cuddled. And Eri quickly joined and took her spot back on his lap. Nana, who saw this, smiled. "Inko, you'd be so happy with your son if you were here," thought Nana. She was pulled out of her thoughts when she saw a message. "Toshi, I need to talk to Izuku, he's the one I've been looking for." "Why isn't my new hand working?" screamed Shigaraki, looking at his new hand that turned purple and black. It was in constant pain while it slowly decayed away like rotten flesh. "I don't know, I healed the injury perfectly but your hand keeps decomposing like it's dead even though blood is flowing through the veins," said Garaki, trying to figure out what's going on. "Do you have any explanation, Garaki?" said All for One, slightly annoyed that his doctor isn't fixing his successor's hand. "No Mstr. This doesn't make any sense at all. Everything checks out medically but nothing I do makes his hand work. It's like it's dead even though nothing is wrong with it. It's that boy. The one that killed my Nomu. He created some type of black fire and now I lost my hand," yelled Shigaraki. "Did you say black flames?" said All for One with a hint of curiosity and a tiny bit of fear in his voice. "Yes, those black flames didn't go out until my hand was gone, and not only that but then he created white and gold flames that completely disintegrated the Nomu, barely leaving ash behind," said Shigaraki, watching Garaki cut off his dead hand and bandage it. "I see, Tamura, leave this boy alone for now. If those flames are what I think they are we may need to change our plans," said All for One. "My lord, what do you think they are?" asked Garaki, looking at the TV. The flames of hell, said all for one, feeling a wave of fear wash over his body. For days later, it's okay Eri, we can start, said Izuku, kneeling down in front of her holding her hands. She shakily shook her head and activated her quirk. Izuku felt his body breaking apart, but then his healing activated and was working faster than Eri's quirk could. You're doing good Eri, now just hold it for a couple more seconds, said Izuku, watching her horn continue to glow. Eri was deep in concentration and trying not to panic and believe he'll stay. Flashback one day ago. Izuku and Eri were outside enjoying the outdoors, and Izuku was putting her hair into a braid. Okay Eri, all done, said Izuku, smiling. Stay right here and I'll be right back with a snack for both of us. Eri nodded her head and held his phone, looking at herself in the camera and couldn't stop her lips from twitching. When she saw how she looked before, she looked down at her arms where some of her bandages were coming undone. She saw her scars and bad memories started to come back to her. You're a disease. You killed your father and your own mother abandoned you, no one would ever care for you. Stop crying or I'll make the pain worse. He then reached for a bone saw and put it on her leg and started to saw it off. Eri grabbed her head as she started to shake and cry from the bad memories, and it got worse when she heard a crow caw. She looked over in pure terror at the crow that was sitting up in a tree. Eri, said Izuku as he ran towards her and held her. It's okay Eri, calm down, it's okay. Eri kept crying, and in her panic her horn started to glow and she looked at Izuku in horror as it activated on him. No! Let me go! Yelled Eri as she shut her eyes and expected him to be gone. Eri, I'm right here, said Izuku as he gently lifted her face up and smiled. He then grabbed her hand and put it on his face, even though her quirk is still active, and she saw that he wasn't disappearing. She started sobbing and hugged him tightly. I was so scared, I thought I lost you. Shoo, it's okay Eri, it's okay, said Izuku as his healing was going full blast, and he gently held her and stroked her back, calming her down. After a couple seconds her quirk finally stopped since she managed to calm herself down. He then placed her back down and gently took her hands. Eri, I'm going to need you to trust me and take off your bandages. Eri looked down at her arms, worried, but decided to trust him and pushed the dark thoughts away and slowly took off her bandages. I am sorry they make me look like a monster, said Eri. Eri, you're not a monster, and don't ever say or think that again. What I see is one of the strongest people I know, because despite everything you've gone through you survived. And are now here and are stronger than ever, said Izuku. Eri looked at him in shock and nodded her head and closed her eyes. His hands then ignited in white and gold flames and placed them on her arms, then legs, and watched as the scars slowly faded away, till nothing but clear skin was left. Okay Eri, open your eyes. She slowly opened her eyes and gasped when she saw her arms and legs. My scars, they're gone. Consider this my gift for you Eri, said Izuku, who was engulfed in a hug with tears of happiness coming from her, and for the first time, a small smile adorned her face. Flashback end. Okay Eri, now try and turn your quirk off, said Izuku gently. Eri kept trying, and after a minute her horn stopped glowing and was slightly smaller, looking like a small bump, and she was in exhaustion. Good job Eri, you did it, said Izuku, smiling. Let's go and get you some apples as a reward for you strong work. Oh Deku, said Eri with her lips twitching upwards in a tiny smile as she grabbed his hand and followed him inside. Alright Izuku, Toshi needs to talk with you, and I'll watch Eri till both of you are done, said Nana. Come on Eri, let's go watch that cartoon you seem to like. Izuku looked up at his older brother figure with a raised eyebrow. Toshi, what did you want to talk to me about? Izuku, I want you to be my successor and wield one for all. Why me? Because I deemed you worthy, and not only that, but you didn't hesitate for a second to save your classmates' lives. At the cost of your own life, which thankfully Fox healed and brought you back. But Toshi, I'm sure there are others out there that would be more worthy than me, said Izuku, trying to wrap his head around this. I'm sure somewhere out in the world maybe, but I deemed you worthy to wield the same quirk me and your grandma held, so tell me, will you accept it? Said All Might hopefully. Fox, what do you think? Thought Izuku. The choice is entirely up to you, but I will support you either way. Besides, with that quirk you would become even stronger and it would be easier to protect those who you love, said Fox. Izuku looked down in thought, and after a couple seconds he looked back up at Toshi right in the eyes. I'll accept it Toshi. "I'll be your successor," said Izuku with a fire in his eyes. All Might smiled proudly at his little brother and took out one of his hairs. "Excellent. Eat this." "I beg your pardon," said Izuku confused. "In order to get my powers you have to eat my DNA. Now come on. Eat it," yelled All Might as he then tried to shove the piece of hair down Izuku's throat. "Get away from me." "I hate you," said Izuku standing in one of the training grounds in UA. "Understandable," said All Might wearing a sling on his arm and had a black eye and a missing tooth along with a busted lip. "Come now Izuku, let's start training. I want to see how powerful you are now," said Nezu appearing on All Might's shoulder. "Fine you sadistic rats," said Izuku as he raised his arm. "I'm gonna use one of my normal attacks first to see the difference." Izuku created the same amount of flames that he normally would to attack villains, and when he launched the attack he destroyed a massive area in the training grounds, melting 5 buildings in the process and leaving a massive burning scar in the training grounds. 𝗧𝗵𝗃, said Izuku, "that was one of my weakest attacks." "It's as I thought." "Izuku, you'll have to spend your time training to reuse your flames at a safe level. Not only that but to get a decent grasp of OFA so you can use both," said Nezu. "Okay Izuku, try using OFA and 𝗧𝗓𝗪, said All Might before Izuku caught him off. "I'll use Grandma's description over yours, no offense," said Izuku with a blank stare. "I feel like you'd tell me to squeeze my butt and yell smash." All Might looked down and a storm cloud formed over his head. "Alright, let's do this," said Izuku as he closed his eyes and searched deep within himself trying to feel the quirk, and after a couple minutes he finally did, and he was shocked from the power of the quirk, and it was increasing in strength to unimaginable levels because of his quirk. Around him red and yellow arcs of electricity flowed around him and the smell of ozone was heavily present. The ground under him cracked because of the power that was starting to radiate off of him. "Smash!" screamed Izuku as flung his fist forward using 100%, and with that single punch he destroyed the entire training ground city along with the 4 behind it. Izuku groaned in pain and grabbed his arm looking at the mass of reddish purple, and felt his injuries already healing. "Because of my healing and your natural super strength I'd say you can handle between 30 to 40% without breaking anything," said Fox. "Holy that's stronger than my United States of Smash," said All Might wide-eyed. "Izuku, that was splendid, but now that you have a feel for the power we must begin training you to control it so you don't hurt or gravely injure someone," said Nezu. "Right?" said Izuku as he felt his quirks rile up in agreement. And so they spent the last 2 weeks training him as strong as he could, and in that time he relearned how to handle his flames, along with how to quickly change his percentage of both of his quirks, and during the time he decided to try and combine them. He accidentally used 100% in his excitement, and now training ground H is nothing but a smoldering crater. He can still hear Nezu's cackling to this day after that incident. Izuku was sitting in his living room reading a book when he got a message. 𝗵/𝗵𝗃𝗀, "Hey, I know you've been really busy, but there's only 1 day left before the sports festival and let's go on date." Izuku looked at it and smiled. "Izuku, sure, I'll pick both of you up at the park tomorrow." "Deku," said Eri looking up at him with eyes of curiosity, "what's a dad?" She pointed at the book where the son was talking to his dad. "Well, a dad is someone who takes care of their child or children and love and support them and always protect them," said Izuku smiling. Does that mean you're my dad?" Izuku froze and he heard squealing and saw his grandma appear out of nowhere holding her phone. "Yes it does, Eri. He's your dad," yelled Nana in happiness. Eri looked up at him and felt for the first time in her life a true smile appear on her face as the darkness overhaul placed on her finally left. "I love you, Papa," she said as she hugged him. Izuku broke out of his frozen state and looked at Eri and smiled warmly. "I love you too, Eri, and I'd be happy to be your dad." After a couple seconds he opened his eyes and they widened in shock as across the room he saw his mother's spirit standing over there, with a proud smile on her face. "In proud of you, Izuku," she said before she slowly faded away. "Mirio," yelled Nijire running up to her longtime friend, "did you hear about the first year that beat a monster that could fight All Might? Not only that, but from what I heard he was seriously injured but healed himself." "Oh really? That sounds interesting. Maybe I can fight him," said Mirio. And from the rumors I heard apparently he's very attractive and powerful, said 𝗵𝗲𝗧𝗟. It was the next day and Izuku was standing near a fountain. He was wearing a black dress shirt and he was waiting for 𝗵𝗃𝗄 and May for his date with them. Hey Izuku, yelled 𝗵𝗃𝗄 running up to him. She had her hair down and was wearing a beige sweater that emphasized her curves. She also had a black miniskirt that went to her mid-thigh and had socks that went a little past her knees. She was wearing some eyeliner and some lip gloss. How do I looks? She said shyly while blushing. Izuku blushed like crazy while feeling his face heat up. I'll look appealing, he said while trying not to die of embarrassment and a slight nosebleed. I'm glad you think so because you're the only guy who I'll allow to oogle as much as he wants. Plus you look really handsome yourself, said 𝗵𝗃𝗄 blushing and her lips. Izuku audibly gulped because she was looking at him like a predator looks at its next meal. Izuku! Yelled May running up them. She was wearing a green t-shirt that was a little tight and had a mini skirt like 𝗵𝗃𝗄. She had her pink hair up in a ponytail and wore some eyeliner as well. Sorry I took so long, my mom forced me to dress up since she said it'll make you keep your eyes on me. His only response was to blush just as much as he did with 𝗵𝗃𝗄. So you ready for our date? Said 𝗵𝗃𝗄 running up to him and grabbing his arm and hugging it while it was in the valley of her melons. I am so let's go. Said May doing the same with his other arm and dragged him off. God please protect me, thought Izuku. He felt his phone go off but couldn't check it so he decided to ignore it for now. No, this is too much fun. Izuku, May, and 𝗵𝗃𝗄 were walking through the streets exploring and window shopping. Iza, let's go to that ice cream shop, said 𝗵𝗃𝗄 before she dragged them off over to it. They all sat down and began talking before their waitress came over. Hello, what can I get for you three? We'll take the lover's ice cream, said 𝗵𝗃𝗄 with a big cat-like grin. The waitress nodded her head and walked off to get the order. So are both of you enjoying the date? Asked Izuku nervously, thinking he might have messed it up. Yes. It's so much fun, especially since we get to be with you, Izuku, said May, bouncing up and down in her seat. I really enjoy it as well, and I hope next time we can bring Ochako with us. She was really sad she couldn't come, said 𝗵𝗃𝗄. Oh, how are things with Eri? She's doing really good and she views me as her dad and calls me Papa, said Izuku. Both girls were silent before their faces exploded with pure happiness. We get to be moms, they said while hugging each other. They sure are happy about that, and I know Eri will be very happy to have multiple moms, said Fox, snickering at Izuku's embarrassment. Alright, here's your order and I hope you all enjoy your date, said the waitress before she left. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 quickly grabbed her spoon and picked up a big scoop of it and tried it, squealing for how good it was. It's so sweet. But I know something that's even sweeter and I want a drink later, Izuku, said 𝗵𝗃𝗄 with her eyes locking onto his neck and her lips. May tried it and agreed before she pulled out a big scoop and handed it to Izuku. Here, try it. Izuku smiled and tried it and agreed that it was very good. They all spent the rest of their time there eating the ice cream and talking, enjoying one another's company. After a while they all left and continued to wander around when they arrived at a park and found a bench to sit at. Izuku sat down with May and 𝗵𝗃𝗄 sitting on either side leaning against him, and they all watched the sunset because it was getting late at night. Man, it got cold fast, said May, shivering from the cold breeze. Here, this will help, said Izuku as he increased his body temperature and the air around him, making it warmer. Thank you, Izuku, said May before she leaned over and his cheek. 𝗵𝗃𝗄, May, I need to ask you something that's been on my mind all day. Are both of you really okay with this? I mean, sharing me with other women, because it seems kinda wrong to do. Yes, Izuku, we are fine with it. Plus, in today's society, polygamous relationships are okay and accepted. Besides, we know that you will love us for us and not our bodies like some men do or women do, said May. But I wouldn't complain about having you check out my body anytime you want. Izuku's head caught on fire from embarrassment. Besides, both of us and Ochako already agreed to share you once we realized that all of us like you. Not only that, but Yaoyorozu and Todoroki families are still trying to get you to marry their daughters. And from what I've seen, I think both of them have a crush on you, said 𝗵𝗃𝗄. Izuku blushed and nodded his head. Okay, I just wanted to make sure cause I don't want to hurt any of you. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 smiled and reached over and pulled him into her embrace, and after a couple of seconds she let go while blushing heavily. May then did the same to him, making him blush even more. "Does that tell you how we feel?" said 𝗵𝗃𝗄 shyly. Izuku nodded his head and them both back, and they just sat there and cuddled while watching the sunset. Grandma, I'm home and May and 𝗵𝗃𝗄 are with me, said Izuku walking into the house. "Papa!" yelled Eri, running up to him and held up a little drawing she drew. "I made this for you." Izuku looked at it, and it was a drawing of him and her holding hands, and he had his phoenix wings out and they were flying. Right above it said, "My hero is my papa." "Thank you, Eri, I really love it," said Izuku, her forehead making her smile. "I'm glad you like it, Papa," said Eri before she saw 𝗵𝗃𝗄 and May. "Why were you with my papa?" "Well, we were on a date since we're dating," said 𝗵𝗃𝗄. Eri didn't understand what that meant, but her mind came to a simple conclusion. "Does that mean both of you are my mommies?" Both girls clenched their hearts in sheer cuteness, and they both hugged her. "Yes, we are both your moms," they said simultaneously. "Yay, I get two mommies," yelled Eri happily while hugging them. "So how was your date?" said Nana walking up to him. "It was fun, Grandma, and thanks for the advice you gave me," said Izuku. No problem, but just remember tomorrow is the sports festival and all of you will be in it. Me and Eri will also be there to watch you as well," said Nana. "And I'll be cheering you on, Papa," said Eri, running up to him and holding her hands out, asking to be picked up. Izuku reached down and picked up, and she immediately hugged him tightly. "Well, with you cheering me on, I know I can't lose," said Izuku, her horn and putting her down. "I'm thirsty and I want some BLD," said 𝗵𝗃𝗄 as she jumped on him and bit his neck. Izuku quickly caught himself and blushed because he could feel her assists rubbing on his tea as she drank his BLD. "Hey Eri, do you want some apples?" said Nana, quickly distracting Eri, and brought her to the kitchen. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 purred while subconsciously grinding herself on him. Izuku started to blush like crazy and was trying to keep his friend under control. "Maybe if you win, me and 𝗵𝗃𝗄 and possibly Ochako can give you a real reward, and this time 𝗵𝗃𝗄 won't be on your necks," purred May as she walked to the other side and his neck before she bit his ear. "They are gonna kill me at this rate," thought Izuku, blushing a storm and tying to rein in his. "Papa, I'm gonna cheer you on," said Eri, holding a little flag that said, "Go Papa." "Thank you, Eri, I really appreciate that," said Izuku, rubbing the top of head. "You excited for the festival?" said Nana, walking up to him and grabbing her purse so her and Eri can see it at the arena. With me cheering Papa on, I know he'll win," said Eri. "Yeah, I can't wait to see what we'll be doing for this sports festival," said Izuku. Izuku was in the waiting room with all of 1A and was talking to 𝗵𝗃𝗄. Yeah, Eri has a little flag and is gonna cheer me on," said Izuku, smiling. "Aw, that's adorable," squealed 𝗵𝗃𝗄. "She's too precious for this world." "Izuku," said Ochako, walking up to him and hugging him tightly. "It's so good to see you after so long." "It's good to see you as well, Ochako," said Izuku. Across the room, a pair of blue eyes glared at him when he saw Ochako hug him, and he strengthened his resolve to kick Izuku's butt. "You better meet me in the finals, Deku, cause you're the only one I can take seriously," said Katsuki. "I wouldn't be sure about that right there, Kaken, because lots of people in our class are very strong and talented," said Izuku. That may be true, but I know that you're the only one that can give me a true challenge," said Katsuki. "Shimura, I need to speak with you," said Shoko, walking up to him. "What is it, Todoroki?" said Izuku, looking up at her, seeing a hurt look in her eyes. "My father is going to try and pressure you to marry me, and I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry I can't stop him," she said, bowing her head. "Wait, what do you mean marry him?" said Mina, confused, and everyone in the room looks at them in curiosity. "My SPRM donor and also Yairose's father are trying to arrange marriages with us to Izuku to secure their own power," said Shoka. "That's horrible. Why would they do that?" "Power. They only care for power and influence, and since I'm the grandson of the former #1 hero," said Izuku. "They are gonna try and either bribe you or force you," said Jiro out loud for everyone. Izuku, Shoka, and Momo nodded their heads sadly. "I promised both of them that if we end up together I wouldn't force them into anything," said Izuku. Some people looked at them with sadness, but one seemed happy since he could use this to steal Ochako away from Izuku. "All right, everyone, let's greet our students," yelled Present Mike over the intercom. Everyone got up, but before Izuku could leave, 𝗵𝗃𝗄 gave him a quick peck on the lips and left, and Ochako his cheek. "They are gonna break you," said Fox. "Worth it?" And first up we have Class 1A that survived a villain attack. Yelled 𝗵𝗃 as everyone cheered watching the class walk out. With Izuku leading the class and waving to everyone, and in the far distance in the teacher's observing area he saw Eri waving happily at him. And next we have Class 1B, who shouldn't be underestimated because they are just as talented and powerful as 1A. Class 1B walked out with Kendo leading them, and she was smiling and waving to the crowd. Next we have the support class with some great minds that will change the world. Mei walked out with the rest of her class right behind her, and when she saw Izuku her whole class had to dig their feet in the ground and try and stop her from running to him. Now we have general studies and management classes with aspiring students who will help out heroes or businesses. Both classes came out and not as many people clapped or cheered, even though 𝗵𝗃 have them a good entrance. In the general studies was Mineta, who was glaring daggers at 1A since he was supposed to be there so he can get his HRM of hot girls. And now for the announcer, our lovely teacher Miss Midnights. Almost everyone in the crowd blushed at the sight of her, and some of the wives glared at their husbands for staring even though they were as well. Hello everyone, I'm glad you could all come and I hope all of you will enjoy this year's sports festival. Now before we get started, let's hear a speech from our class representative Izuku 𝗵𝗃. Said Midnight. Some of the crowd gasped since they instantly recognized that name as the last name of the former #1 hero Paragon. Izuku walked up on stage and some of the girls blushed thinking he was handsome. Hello everyone, I'm happy you're all here to see the world's future heroes. Even if you're not in the hero course, to someone out there you will be their hero. Just remember, boldly go in the direction of your dreams. Stand tall and show the world what you are made of. When the world beats you down, find a reason to get back up again. Never give up on the success. Try and try again. Feed your mind ideas of success, not failure. Remember, the only way you can fail is if you give up. Every time you fail, you come one step closer to success. You are not scared, you are courageous. You are not weak, you are powerful. You are not ordinary, you are remarkable. Do not back down, do not give up. When you look back on your life, don't have regrets. Believe in yourself, believe in your future, you will find your way. A fire burning inside you is mighty, it is waiting to burn bright. You are meant to do great things. Following your dreams can be both terrifying and exciting. Courage is facing fear. Fear of failure holds most people back. You are not most people. Persist and persuade others about your plans as they are real. Nobody can do this but you. Nobody will get in the way of our dreams. Most people 𝗵𝗃 are the obvious. You create something that wasn't there before. It's bold, it's appealing, and it's you. Give it your best, and your dreams will come to life. Success is yours. Go for your dreams. It is your turn, said Izuku with a fire in his eyes. The entire stadium and everyone watching were all flabbergasted by his speech, with some smiling and others crying. Thank you once again for coming out here, and I hope we don't disappoint you all, said Izuku, bowing before he stood back up and walked away. What an appealing speech, 𝗵𝗃, said Midnight happily. The stadium broke out into an applause with cheering and clapping in happiness. Now that is over, let's get started on the games. And for our first stage it will be obstacle course. All the students walked to the starting line and all got ready for the signal. Izuku activated his quirk and had his wings ready along with the flames at the bottom of his feet so he can fly faster. And begin! Yelled Midnight with a crack of her 𝗬𝗃𝗵𝗃. Everyone started running and Izuku immediately took to the sky and flew over everyone, quickly getting in first place with Shoka and Katsuki right behind him. Shoka created a massive ice wall to stop them and used her flames to act like a rocket and shoot off, trying to catch up to Izuku. Katsuki released a massive explosion, catching up with them both. Get back here, Deku. And the students have arrived at the first obstacle. Robot Rumble! Yelled 𝗵𝗃. Izuku looked ahead and saw multiple zero-pointers and lots of other robots, and he could only smirk at the challenge. Incineration Smash! Yelled Izuku as released a massive punch that was as powerful as All Might's full-power New York Smash. All the robots were destroyed by the Air Force, combined with the massive torrent of red-hot flames that melted everything in its path. The entire stadium looked in complete shock that he was able to do that with a single punch. Everyone then heard the cackling of Nezu and shivered. They just hoped he wouldn't make him a miniature version of himself. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, yelled Eri, raising her arms up, cheering, watching him destroy all those mean robots. The staff present smiled at the adorable sight of Eri cheering her dad on. Go mommy! Yelled Eri, watching 𝗵𝗃𝗃 kick a perverted midget off Momo's back, and he went flying into a deep ravine that was created by Izuku's attack. Izuku flew past the second obstacle and was heading to the third one, which was a minefield. He was flying over them when he heard a massive explosion and Katsuki appear a couple feet away from him. This isn't over, Deku. Then bring it, you rabies-infested Pomeranian. What did you call me, you overgrown turkey? The crowd watched with a sweat drop as they both continued to throw insults at each other as they raced to the finish line. Both of them were getting near it when Izuku used 4% and he shot past Katsuki and crossed the line 17 whole seconds ahead of him. And the winner is Izuku Shimura, with Katsuki Bakugo in second place and Shoka Todoroki in third. Soon everyone started to trickle in and Shinso got 30th place and collapsed, muttering about killing Izuku for being a stamina freak. One student glared at Izuku with hatred when he saw the girls that had crushes on Izuku surround him and start talking to him. Especially when Ochako walked up to him and started to talk with him. He marched off and decided he needed to beat him, even if that meant he had to cheat and use something illegal. Alright everyone, now let's spin the wheel and see what the next event is. Yelled Midnight as she spun the wheel. After a minute the wheel slowed down until it finally landed on Capture the Flag. Yelled Midnight with a big smile. Also, the person who scored first place shall have 10 million points. Izuku immediately felt all the angry and competitive glares being sent towards him, making him sweat drop. The 40 students shall get into teams of 4 and be to your starting point. Everyone immediately ran off to find their own teams, and before Izuku could even decide who to ask, Mei and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 immediately ran up to him. Let's team up, Izu, they both said simultaneously with the same crazy look in each other's eyes. Sure, I think it'd be a great idea, said Izuku, making them smile. Now we just need a fourth person. Ochako saw Izuku, 𝗵𝗃𝗃, and Mei, and she started to walk to them to join their team when someone placed his hand on her shoulder. Uraraka, please join me on my team, said Ida, hoping he'd join her. Together we'd be unstoppable. No thanks, I was going to join Izuku's team, said Ochako as she took his hand off her shoulder and ran off to Izuku. Ida clicked his tongue in anger and left to go find a team when he saw Shoka forming one. Alright, you three ready? Asked Izuku, looking at his teammates. /yepers/ I'm gonna make them bleed. 𝗵𝗃𝗃, please don't, said Ochako. Don't worry. Izu is the only one I want BLD from, his is nice and sweet, she said, her lips and looking at him. Izuku blushed, especially since he could still feel the bite from yesterday she gave him. And begin, yelled Present Mike. They all stopped and got serious and looked around the area, trying to see if anyone was going to head to them. They heard an explosion in the distance and some distinctive cussing, figuring it was Katsuki attacking an enemy team. Now I'll show you why 1B is the greatest, yelled Monoma, running up to them with Kendo behind, looking reluctant. 𝗵𝗃𝗃, Ochako, I think you can handle him, said Izuku. What makes you think those two worthless can stop me? Yelled Monoma, who then got a glare from Kendo from saying that. Monoma Donis dash, she was cut off when a ring of flames surrounded him and he suddenly fell to the ground, gasping for air. How does it feel not be able to have any oxygen in the air? Said Izuku as he glared coldly at him. I'm all the oxygen from the air around you with my flames, so in other words, I'm basically choking you out. Now I'm only going to tell you this once, don't ever insult them again, he said, glaring at him. After a couple seconds, Monoma fell to the ground unconscious. Kendo reluctantly picked him up. Shimura, for what it's worth, thanks, and sorry that he said that. She then ran off back to her flag. Izuku sighed and knew this was going to challenge once Shoka or Katsuki show up to possibly challenge him. Execute, yelled Katsuki as he threw a massive explosion at someone and stole his flag to add to his flagpole. Good job, Baku bro, said Kirishima, running up to him. Also, will we go and take Shimura's flag? No. His quirk seems stronger, and when I do face him I want it to be 1-on-1", said Katsuki, standing up. Come on, let's head back to our flags so we can add these. Just then in the distance they saw a massive ice glacier shoot up in the sky, launching some midget off into the stars. No one really cared for him, said Katsuki, walking away. Izuku was sitting on the ground concentrating on his AoE attack while also making sure it didn't hurt Ochako, Himiko, and Mei. He saw the move in a manga and found with lots of concentration and practice he was able to copy the move as well. It was called Cruel Sun, and the temperature around the area was over 800 degrees in Fahrenheit, but he used his control of flames and created cold flames that kept his partners cool at a comfortable 70. Izuku, did anyone ever tell you your quirk is OP? Said Ochako, laughing. More times than I care to count, said Izuku. Well, I think it's awesome. I want to see how many babies I can make from this or make to handle your quirk, said Mei, jumping up and down. Around the stadium hundreds of heroes were looking at Izuku in amazement from how powerful and how much control he had over his quirk to make sure he didn't hurt his comrades. Ida looked over and saw Izuku and glared at him. Todoroki, I believe we should attack 𝗵𝗲 and take his flag. Shoka looked at him, thinking it over, but Ida didn't give her a chance and ran off to try and get him. He found a spot where no one or no cameras could see him, and he pulled out a needle and put it in his arm, pushing the liquid in him. Ida didn't use much since he was going to save the rest, and he put the needle back in the little box and stood up, feeling the effects of trigger working. Now to beat that womanizing 𝗬𝗧𝗍 and take Ochako for myself, said Ida. Izuku was overlooking the area when he heard the sounds of what sounded like a rocket engine. 𝗬𝗍𝗼𝗺 burst, yelled Ida as he shot past Izuku's AoE attack and kicked him with enough force that it shattered the bones in his arm, along with the right side of his ribcage, and launched him out of the way and making him slam into a building. Izuku yelled his teammates, but were caught off guard when Ida blitzed past them and grabbed the flag and started to run off. And Tenya, Ida has taken the 10 million point flags, yelled Present Mike. Izuku slowly forced his body up and felt his wounds healing and activated his heavenly flames to increase the speed of his healing. He looked up at the distance and saw Ida and glared, Fine Ida. I'll play dirty too. Ida was running back and was starting to feel the effects of trigger, but saw this as necessary to show he was stronger and he deserved to have Ochako. As he kept running when he felt a scorching heat behind him, and he turned around and saw Izuku behind him with arcs of red and yellow lighting around him. Flame smash, yelled Izuku as his fist slammed into him, lurching his body and making him puke out his lunch. Ida fell to the ground holding his stomach in pain from the punch and first-degree burns on his stomach. He also felt trigger leave his body and the after effects hit him strong. I'll take back my flag, said Izuku as he grabbed it and flew off back to his flagpole. After Izuku landed back at his flagpole and put his flag back up, they went back to the same tragedy they were using, and after a couple minutes, the match was called and his team, Kendo's team, Katsuki's, Shoka's, and Shinso's teams all passed. They were all now in the cafeteria eating lunch, and Izuku could feel a dark glare from someone but couldn't tell who because of the amount of people in the room. 𝗵𝗲𝗄, are you all right? Said Shoka, feeling a little worried since she saw the damage Ida did to him. Yeah, don't worry, I'm good, my healing factor healed any damage I took, said Izuku. As they continued talking, he heard someone that brought a smile to Fix's face. Papa, yelled Eri, running up to him with Nana closely behind. Izuku turned around and opened his arms, getting hugged tightly by her. Hey Snowball, how are you? Said Izuku, smiling as he lifted her up and out her in his lap. I'm doing good. Not only that, but you were so cool and I cheered you on, said Eri, who then proceeded to explain everything. Everyone thought that it was really adorable watching Eri explain everything she saw from her point of view. As they continued talking, Izuku ended meeting Kendo and they both had a small conversation before someone else came to his table. Boy, I wish to speak with you, said Endeavor, looking at him. Izuku looked at him with a cold glare but stood up. Guys, can you watch Eri for me? Said Izuku. They nodded and watched as Izuku and Endeavor walked off to go and speak privately. Elsewhere in the stadium, Ida was looking around quickly, making sure no one saw him. So you want more? Asked a man with a plague doctor's mask. Yes, said Ida as he handed over the money. Well, my boss has a new strand of trigger and he's willing to sell it to you for both the money and something else, said the man. I don't care, just give me it so I can beat 𝗵𝗲𝗃 and take 𝗪𝗃𝗃 for myself, said Ida. We want that little girl named 𝗬𝗧𝗏, said the man. So what is it you want to talk about? Said Izuku, glaring at 𝗵𝗃𝗏. We already talked about this before, but now that I got to really see your quirk. I want you to marry my daughter and get her 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗀 so she can create powerful children, said 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Izuku felt his blood boiling at hearing this. He was treating her like some disposable tool and not seeing her for his daughter. You will marry her and put a child in her in the next couple of months, said 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 before he turned and walked away. No. What? Said 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏, feeling anger build up in him. I will not just marry her because you told me to, let alone get her 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗀. If I was to take her hand in marriage, it will be because we both love each other and no other reason, said Izuku. You realize who I am, boy, and you should be grateful I'm even offering my daughter's hand to marry you, said 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 with his flames flaring up. Izuku glared more and flared his own flames that instantly matched 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏's. The heat that was being generated by both of them started to melt the concrete. Before anything else could happen, All Might appeared while having a bunch of ice packs on him. I am here to stop this needless fight, said All Might, sweating regardless. The table talking while 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 was braiding Eri's hair. Papa, look what mommy is doing, said Eri, pointing to her braided hair. Wow, that's appealing, Eri, said Izuku, patting the top of her head, making her smile more brightly. Papa, I even saved you an apple, she said, grabbing one and handing him it. I truly appreciate it, my little unicorn, said Izuku, her forehead and gently bumping his forehead against hers. Eri smiled more brightly and hugged him tightly, happy that she has finally found happiness like this and knowing her papa will always protect her. The girls that all had crushes or were dating him all blushed while thinking, he's such a great father, please let me have you kids. After that, all the ones that simply had crushes all went scarlet, realizing they thought this. Alright everyone, now for the first match. 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗃 versus 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 Kendo. Yelled present Mike. Kendo walked out to the ring and was wondering where 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 was when she looked over at the 1A area and saw her currently on Izuku's neck. She felt her cheeks heat up a little and felt her 𝗧𝗍 tighten up slightly but brushed it off. 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 let go of Izuku and gave him a quick embrace before she jumped off the railing and skipped happily to the ring. Hi, I'm 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 and I can't wait to make you bleed so Izu will give me more blood, she giggled. Kendo looked concerned until she saw the student named 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 holding up a sign. She talks like that to scare people? She only drinks Izuku's blood. Are both fighters ready? Said Midnight, walking out on stage. They both nodded and so Midnight cracked her WHP, signaling the beginning of the match. In the blink of the eye, 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 was in front of Kendo and slammed her fist in her stomach. Kendo lurched forward but took advantage of the situation and elbowed 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏's back, making her grunt. She quickly rolled back and glared at Kendo while she also watched her activate her quirk, making her hands huge. Oh, your hands are giant, but that won't help you, she giggled before she charged at her. I don't do WhatIf, said Kendo before she blinked and 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 disappeared, only to reappear and punch her in the face. You should get better at dodging, he. I just had to fight the crazy one. As both of them continued fighting, Izuku was watching with great interest of the fight while also jotting down notes in his notebook that he pulled out of nowhere, which greatly confused everyone. While he was doing that, 𝗪𝗃𝗏𝗏 decided to be bold and lean on his shoulder off Ida in the background. Whatcha writing, 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, said Mina, leaning over him and looking into his notes. Well, I'm writing down how 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 Kendo fighting 𝗵𝗏𝗏, said Izuku in his mutter storm, which was starting to scare everyone. It only got worse when kanjis for everything he was saying started to appear and pile up on the ground. Katsuki, seeing enough of this, smacked the back of his head, which also made Mina fall forward and land on the ground before Izuku. Oh, sorry about that, I kinda get into mutter storms, said Izuku. It's okay. Besides, said Mina, who then sat in Izuku's lap, now I have the best seat in the stadium. 𝗪𝗃𝗏𝗏 puffed her cheeks and pouted while Momo felt a slight twinge in her skin. With Shoka, the air was both cold and hot. It took all of Izuku's self-control not to get irked, especially since Mina wiggled her, but to get comfortable. Back in the arena, both 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 and Kendo were bruised and bloodied, but both were still standing. Kendo charged and punched Himiko across the face, but Himiko kicked her stomach, pushing them both back. I won't lose, I wanna show that even someone with a villainous quirk can be a hero, said Himiko. And I won't lose either, I want to show that even people with useless quirks can be great heroes, said Kendo. They both charged at each other and continued to attack each other, but both were getting more and more tired. After 3 painfully long minutes of them fighting, Himiko dodged a sweep from Kendo and slammed her elbow into Kendo's head, knocking her out. And the winner is Himiko Toga, yelled Present Mike. Himiko smiled and fell to the ground unconscious. That was amazing, Himiko, said Izuku as he her cheek, making her smile brightly, showing her fawn-like smile. Izuku blushed a little. It was one of the cutest things she does and wishes he could see her fawn-like smile more. You did awesome, Himiko, but I think we should train more so you don't get hurt as badly, said Ochako. Best would be to learn to read your opponent's moves so you can avoid getting hurt, said Katsuki. Oh my god, you have a brain, Kaken, said Izuku. F you. No thanks. I have 2 girlfriends for that. You little SHT. But Izuku is taller than you, Katsuki, said Mei. God f damn it. He then started marching off while grinding his teeth and grumbling. Haha, I'm gonna pay for that when we fight later, said Izuku. Oh, you did amazing as well, Kendo. Thank you, Shimura, said Kendo. And Shoka Todoroki has beating Mina Ashido in just 3 moves. Yelled Present Mike. And will Mei Hatsum and Tenya Ida please come to the arenas? Welp, looks like I gotta go and show Prudent but had a lesson for being a jerk to all ya, said Mei as she Izuku and left. Good lucks, said everyone in the room. So what is Eri doing? Said Himiko. She's with Grandma and is most likely cheering on Mei. Up in the observation room, Eri was cheering on Mei as she used a sound cannon on Ida, making BLD leak from his ears. I need to spoil her after this, said Himiko. Hee, that is something we all need to do, said Ochako. I mean, who wouldn't want to spoil her, said Izuku. Mei ended up giving up her match after humiliating Ida for 15 by talking about her gadgets and testing them on him. Kirishima and Tetsu ended up fighting until they exhausted themselves and had to finish the round by arm wrestling, with Kirishima winning the match. Tokoyami and Momo fought with him, winning the match, but it ended up being a close match. Ibra and Denki fought with Ibra simply swatting him away with her vines. Ochako and Katsuki fought with the match being close and Ochako almost beating him by using her quirk on him. If it wasn't for his quick thinking, then he would have lost the match. Good job, Ochako, said Katsuki, helping her up. Well, it's all thanks to everyone's help in training me, especially you, Oni-chan, said Ochako. Katsuki smirked and helped her up and go to the infirmary. Izuku and Shinso were both standing across each other in the arena waiting for the match to begin. You ready, Hitoshi, said Izuku, cracking his neck. If you're ready to lose, said Shinso, stretching. And begin. Izuku charged at him and threw a punch at him, with Shinso ducking under it, then trying to slam his elbow into his ST. You're working pretty strong, said Shinso, hoping to make him answer. But he didn't, and then created 3 blades of fire and shot them at Shinso, with him dodging 2 of them, but the third nicked him. Sichti, said Shinso, rolling out of the way. I know for a fact that you can easily beat me with 1 move, so why aren't you? Izuku didn't answer, but instead he sent his flames up in the air and they formed words for him to read. Because you deserve to show the world what you're capable of doing, and it'd be wrong to instantly beat you. Hee. You're a good friend, Izuku, and I hope after this we can be best friends, said Shinso. Izuku just smiled and nodded his head. They then charged at each other again and continued to fight, but it was clear that Izuku had the advantage in almost every field of fighting. Shinso was getting overwhelmed but decided to play dirty and rolled out of the way of her attack and grabbed some dirt on the ground. Izuku went into attack but was met by dirt being thrown at his face, almost blinding him. Eat this, said Shinso as he charged at him and tried to punch him, but Izuku blocked it. A small flame built up in Izuku's hand and it hit Shinso, blowing him out of the ring. And the winner is Izuku Shimura, yelled Present Mike. Izuku walked over to Shinso and helped him up and helped him go to the infirmary. Ida, go away, I don't want to deal with you, said Ochako, ignoring him. But you shouldn't be with a man like Izuku, said Ida. For the last T-dash, she was cut off when he smashed his lips against hers, making her eyes widen in horror. Just then the door opened and Izuku walked in with Shinso and saw this. 𝗳𝗍𝗂𝗍, said Izuku with a broken look in his eyes as he left, but he slammed the door shut, destroying it and cracking the walls. Wait, Izuku! Yelled Ochako, trying to stand up. You don't need him, you only need me, said Ida, trying to stop her. Ochako punched him in the face. Don't you ever touch him, or get near any of my friends again. She then ran out the room hoping to find Izuku and explain what happened. I hope Izuku fights you and beats you to the point your mother won't recognize you, said Shinso, glaring at him and leaving to go tell the others. Damn it, but no matter, once I beat him she'll be mine and then I can give that man Eri and that'll just solidify me getting her, said Ida, with a crazy look in his eyes showing that he wasn't mentally stable. Izuku was walking down the halls of the stadium with his head down, realizing that Ochako loved Ida and not him. Something about that didn't seem right, said Fox. What do you mean? It's obvious she likes him. Why else would they embrace? Thought Izuku. From what I can sense, Ochako felt nothing but disgust and anger when he did that to her and from Ida. I don't think he's stable. What do you mean stable? From what I could sense, it felt the same as that one person that we saw go insane. His emotions were everywhere, but for Ida, it's almost the same, except he's obsessed with Ochako. Izuku, said Ochako, running up to him, please let me explain. He looked at her and could sense nothing but regret, sadness, anger, but none of that was directed towards him. The only emotions directed towards him were sadness and love. I didn't embrace him, me and tried to make advances on me. She remembered that before Izuku came in, Ida kept trying to touch her, and no matter how many times she smacked him away or said no, he didn't stop and kept trying to grab her inappropriately. What do you mean? Said Izuku with his voice going cold and emotionless. He kept trying to touch me inappropriately. Ochako looked up and saw that in Izuku's anger his flames activated and were BLD red in color with rage, and some wisps of black were seen in them as well. Fox quickly quelled the black flames. The last thing he needed was Izuku to have access to the flames of hell before he was ready. He's going to wish he never came to this school or even looked at you when I'm done with him, said Izuku as his slitted pupils looked at Ochako. Just don't take it too far so you don't in trouble, said Ochako, but kick his but Izuku. I promise I will, said Izuku. And Katsuki Bakugo has beaten Ejiro Kirishima. Will 𝗵𝗃𝗃 Tokoyami and Himiko Toga come to the arena? Izuku looked out. You go and watch the matches. I need to get ready to fight Todoroki. Okay, but before that. She walked up to him and stood up on her tippy toes and him while wrapping her arms around his neck and sighed happily into the embrace. Izuku was a little caught off by this but quickly returned the embrace and wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her closer to him. They continued the lip lock for over a minute before they broke off with a trail of saliva between them. You have no idea how long I've wanted to do that, said Ochako. Yeah. And I'm sorry it took me so long to realize you, Himiko, and May had feelings for me. It's okay, before you go can I have another embrace? Asked Ochako shyly while blushing. Izuku cupped her chin and her again, getting a very happy hum from her as she hugged him tighter. Tokoyami beat Himiko, but it was extremely close and he only won because Dark Shadow got a sneak attack on her. When she charged at him and he shot out, hitting her in the gut, giving him the opportunity to knock her out of the ring. The next match, Ida beat Ibra with a brutal kick that broke her arm and almost made some of her ribs stab into her lungs. Will Izuku Shimura and Shoka Todoroki come down to the ring? Both of them entered the ring and stared at each other. Wish you luck, Todoroki. Same to you, Shimura. In the crowd, May, Himiko, Ochako and Eri were cheering Izuku on while also giving Shoka support. Eri was sitting on Katsuki's shoulders so she can watch her papa's match easier. Thank you, Uncle Kaken, said Eri, smiling. Whoever hurts her I'll beat to the point not even God will know who he or she is. Are both fighters ready? Said Midnight, seeing that both of them nodded and got ready. Then begin. The second her WHP cracked, Shoka launched a massive glacier at Izuku before she quickly built up her flames in her left hand to attack him. Izuku smashed through the glacier like it was nothing and released a massive torrent of flames which were immediately blocked by Shoka's own flames, and much like battle training, they both were now fighting for 𝗵𝗃. "I see you've gotten stronger, Todoroki," said Izuku as he then spread both his arms out and shot flames from them, before he brought them back together to try and overwhelm her defense. Shoka smiled and slapped her right hand on the ground and shot herself up in the air with a massive ice pillar before she jumped off it and shot flames at him, making him have to jump back to dodge them. "Indeed I have, and I see that so have you." Izuku quickly dropped to the ground and used his arms to spin himself around as he shot fire out his feet to disrupt her attack and make her have to back off or she'd get hit by his attack. As soon as she landed on the ground, she slammed her right hand on the ground again and sent massive ice spikes before she then lifted up her left hand and shot a jet stream of red-hot flames at Izuku. "Vortex," said Izuku as he lifted his hand up, and a green fire ring as big as him formed, and all of Shoka's flames were immediately into the portal and used as a wall of fire to stop the ice. Up in the stands, 𝗵𝗃 was grinning darkly, seeing just how powerful Izuku's quirk was. To believe a boy's quirk could be this strong. I need him to impregnate Shoka to create even stronger children. But then again, why stop there? Could create possibly even more strong children with Fuyumi or that bitch I married. Deep inside, Izuku felt the dark and evil feeling from 𝗵𝗃 and was so wishing he could put him in his place. Izuku and Shoka continued this massive slugfest with neither gaining any ground for over 5 minutes until Izuku decided to change his strategy. "One for all 5%, thought Izuku as red and yellow lighting surrounded him, and in the blink of the eye he disappeared, only to reappear in front of Shoka and slam his fist right into her gut, almost blowing her out of the ring if she didn't create a ice wall to painfully slam into. "You know you can't beat me this way, Todoroki. Let's finish this with our strongest attacks," said Izuku. Shoka forced her body up painfully. "Let's end this." Shoka concentrated all her flames into her hand while simultaneously doing the same with her ice. Izuku saw this and smiled while entering his phoenix form, with his pupils becoming slits and giant fire wings formed on his back. "𝗵𝗃, you might want to protect the crowd. Because I'm gonna let loose a little," said Izuku as the entire stadium suddenly became 40 degrees hotter and the sun seemed to be beating down on everyone even more. He combined his flames with OFA and he felt the power all but quadruple. 𝗵𝗃 slammed his hands on the ground, creating massive thick walls to protect the crowd. Shoka, 𝗵𝗃, and every flame user in the entire stadium suddenly felt cold, as if all the heat they generate disappeared. Shoka flung her arms forward, shooting both her ice and fire at Izuku, hoping to stop him before it was too late. "Amenteratsu's judgment," said Izuku as he lifted his hand, and a tiny red ball was seen in his hand. The last thing everyone saw was a flash of light before everything went to hell. A giant storm of fire was shot out from where Izuku was, and it shot out with so much force and power it made Shoka's attack seem like a lighter trying to fight a flamethrower. Everyone in and out of the stadium watched as the giant hell storm of fire roared over the stadium, reaching the cloud cover, dispersing all the clouds. "Holy acid hot!" yelled Present Mike. "This is why you're a problem child." Class 1A was in shock along with most of the staff from seeing this much power coming from a 16-year-old. In a rundown warehouse, a man hooked up to many different machines, his lip at the thought of having this boy's quirk. Eri was just cheering her papa on, watching him basically defy all quirk logic for how powerful he was. "She's definitely Izuku's child," thought all of 1A. After a couple of minutes, the smoke and heat disappeared and the crowd gasped when they saw the arena. Everything was burned or melted. The concrete looked like slag and glass, and the top of the stadium had a massive burn mark on it with the part that was hit by the attack was turned into glass from the sheer heat of the fire. Then they felt water and looked up and saw that from the sheer force and heat of his attack that the sky started to rain from it. When they looked back down to the area, they saw Izuku standing with his arm extended and only had minor burns on his arm. But most of his tracksuit was turned into cinders. The women weren't complaining about that at all when they saw his body, especially his girlfriends and the girls with crushes on him. Shoka, on the other hand, looked like she was imprisoned in the wall 𝗵𝗃 made from the melted concrete. She had bruises and some burns on her body from Izuku's attack. And the winner is 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁. Everyone was still in shock from the sheer power that he wielded, but after a couple seconds of silence the entire stadium broke out in cheering. Izuku walked to Shoka, who was still stuck in the wall and unconscious, and superheated his hands to cut through the concrete and pulled her out. He then carried her a ways up to the medical bots and put her on the stretcher. He then started to walk to where 1A was, and once he got up to the stands, Eri jumped off Katsuki's shoulders to Izuku to hug him. "That was so cool, Papa, and when I all through 𝗧𝗵𝗲𝗵𝗃𝗁, said Eri before she broke out muttering like Izuku does. Okay, she's really his daughter now. Up in the stands for away, Endeavor was in complete shock. He couldn't move or blink for how shocked he was. A 16-year-old boy did that. I couldn't even do half of that if I held nothing back and didn't care what the damage did to my body. No matter how strong he tried, he just couldn't wrap his head around how Izuku was able to use that much firepower and not suffer from overheating like every fire quirk user has to deal with. Not only that, but his sheer physical strength seemed to on par with All Might. All right, everyone, once the arena and the damaged part of the stadium is repaired, we'll begin the semi-finals. Elsewhere, Ida was seething in rage from seeing this and knew he'd more trigger to beat him. Just then his phone went off, seeing that it was his mother. He looked at it for a long moment before he hit the end call button, not caring. I need more trigger to beat him and steal Ochako from him, as well as give that man that little white-haired brats, he thought, heading to the locker room. Izuku and the others were all watching Katsuki fight Tokoyami, and the fight was clearly in Katsuki's favor given his quirk and Tokoyami's weakness to light. Eri was sitting in Izuku's lap munching on an apple while her papa was subconsciously putting her hair in a braid for her. The match went on for 2 more minutes before Katsuki knocked him out of the ring. Learn to make up for your weaknesses, then come and fight me for real. Tokoyami got a small smile on his face and stood up. Very well, and next time I'll show you the power of darkness. I'm looking forward to it, said Katsuki before he put his hands in his pockets and walked away. Will Izuku Shimura and Tenya Ida please come to the ring? Yelled present Mike. Welp, looks like I have to go. Cheer me on, okay Snowball, said Izuku, putting her down in her seat. You got it, Papa, said Eri, raising her fist with a smile on her face. Izuku smiled and walked away to head to the battle ring. Hey girls, I got a great idea how to cheer Izu on, said Mina, standing up with a massive mischievous grin. Shoka, who just came back from the medical ward, raised an eyebrow while she was playing with some of her red hair. Oh, tell me, said Himiko, bouncing up and down in excitement. Mina's eyes landed on Momo as she grinned. Hey Momo, we're gonna need your quirk. Momo looked confused before she looked concerned, giving the glint in her eyes. Also get May, said Mina. What girls doing? Said a new voice. They all looked behind them and saw a girl with long periwinkle blue hair standing behind them with a curious gaze. We were gonna cheer Izuku on and we need Momo's help, said Himiko. Can I help? Said Eri, wanting to help cheer her pop on. No, Eri, because I'm pretty sure whatever Mina's gonna do would make Izuku kill her if she let you, said Katsuki. The entire class thought of an angry Izuku, and that scared them. Then they thought of an angry Izuku in angry dad mode. They were pretty sure not even Kami could save them. Alright girls, let's cheer Izuku on, said Mina triumphantly. Oh, let me join, said Nijire, since she was enjoying the fights that Izuku was having and was hoping to use this so she can talk to him sooner. Mina led the charge, with Himiko picking up a confused Momo and ran off with the other girls that liked him plus Nijire. Close behind. They were running down the hall when they bumped into Kendo. Oh, sorry Kendo. Wait, perfect, you're coming with us, said Mina. But why? Said Kendo before Mina grabbed her, dragging her with them. Wait, I didn't agree to anything. Izuku and Ida were standing before one another, and Izuku noticed that Ida looked different. He was sweating profusely, but only on his face, and it was beet red. With him also, as if he was exhausted from doing something extremely taxing. Alright ladies and gentlemen, today's last semi-final round is between Izuku Shimura and Tenya Ida. Yelled present Mike, hyping the crowd up. Now Lu, whoa, what are the 1A girls and Hato along with 1B's class president doing? Izuku was confused, but then turned and looked, and his entire face went beet red and his quirk malfunctioned and activated, covering his whole body in flames. Most of the girls in 1A were wearing cheerleader outfits along with Mei and Kendo and a girl Izuku recognized as 𝗳𝗬𝗧𝗏 who worked for Ryukyu. "Go Izuku!" yelled most of the girls. The only ones who didn't were Kendo and Shoka, with the former covering her face to hide her blush while Shoka stood frozen not knowing what to do. "Izuku, I think I know what your secret quirk is. Attracting hot women," said Fox. Izuku was still frozen with his brain not being able to handle seeing all those girls in cheerleader outfits. Anyways, are both fighters ready? Ida and Izuku looked at each other, with Ida forming a grin that belonged on a psychopath. "And begin." The second he said that, Ida blitzed forward with his leg only coming inches away from Izuku's head with enough force to rip it off. "He's trying to kill me," thought Izuku as he grabbed Ida's leg and used his own momentum to throw him across the ring. "You won't steal her from me," said Ida with his voice sounding broken and unstable. Izuku charged at him to try and hit him, but faster than he could react this time Ida appeared before him and did an axe kick to his shoulder, cracking the collarbone. He then reached forward, grabbing Izuku's jacket, and started to beat his face in with his fist. "Hell's Cape," said Izuku as his whole body exploded in flames, making Ida jump back, holding his hand in pain, seeing burns from the blue flames. Flesh versus 3000 degrees flames. "I think the answer is obvious. Who will win?" "No, I will beat you," said Ida as the exhaust pipes on his legs glowed and smoke blasted out of them. Reciprocal burst. One for all, 10%. Izuku watched Ida's leg move in slow motion and countered with his own leg, and both of them slammed into each other, with Ida feeling his bones cracks. He then reared his fist back, feeling one for all build up in his arm, and he threw his punch to Ida, who blocked it with his arms to take the damage. All it did was soften the blow to his 𝗧𝗍, but left both his arms broken. Ida fell to the ground in pain and tried to get up, but his body was a mess from all those blows. Tenya Ida is unable to F-dash, and oh, I can still fight. Everyone looked as he forced himself off the ground and had a look of nothing but pure hatred, and this whole time Izuku was glaring at him as well. Except he was keeping his anger under control, which was quickly diminishing as this fight continued. "I will defeat you and she will belong to me. You can't have her nor deserve her." Everyone in the crowd looked confused on what he was talking about. "She isn't yours to take or keep. She's her own person and can make her own choices, and you should respect her decision," said Izuku neutrally. "No, it's because you took her from me. If you didn't interrupt us, then I could have had my way with her." The crowd looked disgusted and horrified that a UA student who was also the son and brother of 3 famous heroes was like this. Ochako subconsciously took a couple steps back, and Shoka stood in front of her along with the other girls, showing they wouldn't let him get near her. As for Izuku, his anger was starting to boil over and his flames were getting hotter, reaching well over 6000 degrees at this point, and with his anger rising, black wisps of fire were seen. Midnight, who had to walk back 30 feet with 𝗵𝗃𝗃 building a wall to shield them from the heat. "She'd be mine once I got rid of you and gave that little white-haired brat to those people you dash." Boom! Ida wasn't able to finish his sentence as a fist covered in black flames was slammed into his 𝗧𝗍 and was sent through the arena wall and the entire stadium, where he then slammed into a building near the stadium on the other side of the road. "Don't you ever mention giving my daughter to those monsters again," screamed Izuku as black flames appeared as horns on top of his head, making him look like a demon with blue flames dancing around him, and the sheer heat of the fire was melting the very area around him, with the entire stadium feeling it. Midnight took a couple steps back in fear from the sheer anger and hatred rolling off Izuku and was scared that he'd snap at her. "Holy fudge, Izuku is angry," said Katsuki, terrified while trying to keep Eri calm. "Papa, calm down," said Eri, standing up and yelling to him. Luckily, Izuku heard her voice and was able to rein his anger in, with his flames disappearing, and he took a couple deep breaths. "Izuku 𝗵𝗃𝗃 wins," said Midnight. The entire stadium slowly started to clap before some of them started cheering. Izuku finally got his anger under control and walked away, already seeing the medical bots racing to Ida to help him. Not that he really cared for his state right now over what he said about Ochako and Eri. He slumped down on the ground, leaning his back against the wall of the hallway, and sighed. "I let my anger get the best of me." Yes, you did," But considering the scenario, it's understandable why you did get angry, and I'm sure the staff will understand. Thanks, Fox. Also, I must tell you that with you using the flames of hell, he'll be permanently scared, and there's nothing but doctors could do to heal the damage, said Fox. What do you mean? The body is made of 3 things: the mind, the soul, and finally the body. With you using the flames of hell, you destroyed a part of his soul which will never heal. Wait, so you mean? Yes, the flames of hell have left a scar on him and nothing can heal it, along with that villain Shigaraki. Nothing he or anyone else can do will ever bring his hand back because that part of his soul was forever destroyed. Papa Izuku 𝗔𝗵𝗲. Izuku looked over and saw all his friends and Eri running to him, with Eri quickly hugging him, making him smile and rub her head. Are you okay, Papa? Said Eri, looking up at him. Don't worry, I'm fine. I just let my anger get the best of me, said Izuku, her horn making her smile. I can't believe Ida would say all that on live TV, said Momo, bringing her hand to her chin in thought, plus he seemed sick in the head. He was, said Izuku. I think he was also on something. What do you mean? Said Himiko. His face was red and sweating profusely, but the rest of his body was not only that, but his quirks seemed so much stronger than it normally is, said Izuku, breaking out into a mutter storm. I think you're right, Papa. His addicts were really fast and scary, said Eri, breaking into a mutter storm as well. Everyone watched as the father-daughter duo were muttering and kanjis were piling up on the ground. Are you certain Eri isn't 𝗵𝗲𝗄's secret love child? Shoka, looking at Ochako, Himiko, and Mei. Well, said the 3, who then saw both Izuku and Eri pull out notepads and started scribbling. Okay, now we're not sure. Both of them stopped and looked at the others and spoke simultaneously. Did you say something? We need to ask Recovery Girl to do a BLD test on these 2, thought everyone. While that was happening, Ida was laying on the medical bed in the infirmary while having quirk suppressant cuffs placed on him. His body was badly damaged and was reacting badly to the withdrawal of trigger. Yes, I did a BLD test and he came back positive for trigger. This boy was very close to overdosing on them, said Recovery Girl. Not only that, but when I healed him, one injury wouldn't heal no matter what I did. Everyone looked at Ida's as seeing a burn on it that looked like it was rotting but wasn't at the same time. I don't know what Izuku did, but nothing I do can heal him. Also, I found a note in his pocket that gave him instructions where to deliver Eri for his money and more trigger, said Recovery Girl. Aizawa's eyes narrowed as he looked at Ida with a glare that could give all for one a run for his money. Somewhere in Japan, said man felt a tick mark form on his head and that someone was challenging for a title he held great pride in. Not only that, but from what Izuku told me, he even tried to make advances on young Uraraka, said All Might, wishing he could personally wring Ida's neck. I want him expelled and arrested for using an illegal drag, said Aizawa. Done, said Nezu, appearing out of nowhere while holding a cup of tea and had a dark grin on his face. Also, we'll need a new student to replace him, whom I'm sure me or the readers will come up with an idea who to add. The staff in the room screamed in fear since Nezu simply defied logic at every single turn. All right, now we can begin the finals. With our last 2 contestants, Izuku 𝗵𝗲𝗄 and Katsuki Bakugo. Both of them walked out of the entrances and stood in the fighting ring, but before they could begin, the girls once again started cheering for Izuku. You're one lucky BSD getting a bunch of girls going after you, you know that, said Katsuki, smirking, watching Izuku blush. Shut up. Don't forget protection, Izuku, yelled Nana from the stands. Grandmom. Everyone broke out laughing, watching poor Izuku wanting to die of sheer embarrassment of the situation. What? Unless you want to make me a great grandma, then go ahead. Izuku hid his face and was currently hoping God will kill him. I won't, said Nezu over the intercom. I'm already an Uncle Izuku. I don't want to have to watch even more of your kids, said Katsuki, snickering. Ahem. Anyways, are both fighters ready? Izuku got over his embarrassment and looked at Katsuki with a look that promised pain. And begin. Incineration/AP shot. Both attacks collided and negated each other, creating a massive smoke screen. Izuku used the smoke screen to his advantage and charged through it and grabbed Katsuki by his leg and spun him to throw him out, but Katsuki countered by creating a flashbang. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 ended up getting flung away but quickly used his explosions to slow his fall and quickly released a huge one to stop moving. "You've gotten faster, 𝗂𝗂𝗃. A couple weeks ago that would have got you," said Izuku, finally getting his sight back. "Yeah, I'm not gonna sit around letting you hog all the fun," said 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Both of them grinned and charged back at each other, with Izuku slamming his leg into 𝗧𝗵𝗃's side while he smashed an explosive punch on Izuku's face. They both reeled back, but Izuku got back up first and lifted his hand and released a massive torrent of flames covering the area. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 managed to just create an explosion on time to fly back, but now his hand was slightly burned. "Eat this," yelled 𝗧𝗵𝗃 as he slammed his hands into the ground and released two massive explosions, shattering the ground to create 𝗧𝗵𝗃 grenade. Izuku smirked and created one of his flame's wings and blocked the attack, but once he lifted his wing he saw that 𝗧𝗵𝗃 was gone. In the corner of his eye he saw him but was too late to react to the punch to the face, then the knee to his gut. "Impact!" screamed 𝗧𝗵𝗃, releasing a powerful but small explosion on Izuku's stomach which launched him backwards. He's been getting better. "A lot better," thought Izuku. "Flame dance," said Izuku as he swung his arms like a blade and two flaming tornadoes formed, racing to 𝗧𝗵𝗃. "What the F?" said 𝗧𝗵𝗃, releasing explosions to get back. Izuku smirked and snapped his fingers, causing them both to explode, covering the area in smoke and fire. Given the smoke, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 couldn't see anything in front of him, and before he could react a bolt of red and yellow lighting was seen and then a fist slammed into his face. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 rolled across the ring before he released a massive explosion, launching him up in the air where he used explosions to stay airborne. Izuku saw this and smiled before he created both his flame wings and flew up to greet him. "𝗂𝗂𝗃, I think it's time we end this fight," said Izuku. "I agree." 𝗧𝗵𝗃 flew high into the sky so he can use his new super move, while Izuku combined his flames and one for all together in his right fist. Howitzer/New York. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 flew to the ground spinning and flipped to release the massive explosion while Izuku reared his fist back and started to throw the punch. Impact/Flame Smash. Both attacks collided, creating a massive explosion covering the entire ring in a thick black cloud of smoke. "Holy CRP, what have you been teaching them, Eraser?" yelled Present Mike, covering his face from the explosion. "Certainly not that," he said in a deadpan voice. Once the smoke cleared, Izuku was standing tall but had some cuts and bruises which he told Fox not to heal just in case. On the other side, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 was standing, but he was in much worse shape and could barely stand. Everyone watched as he forced his body to start walking towards Izuku. "I am not." His eyes rolled into the back of his head and he face planted onto the ground unconscious. "The winner of the UA Sports Festival is Izuku 𝗵𝗃." Then entire stadium started screaming and cheering in happiness from one of the best sports festivals of their lives to this day. Izuku smiled before he too passed out from exhaustion, and not allowing his injuries to heal in fear people would figure out what his quirk could really do. A little while after Izuku's and 𝗧𝗵𝗃's fight and the arena being repaired, Izuku, 𝗧𝗵𝗃, and Shoko were standing on the platform. Shoko was in third while 𝗧𝗵𝗃 was in second, and finally Izuku was in first place, and they could hear the crowd cheering them for winning. They were all waiting to get the medals when Present Mike spoke. "Hello everyone, I'm sure you enjoyed this year's sports festival, am I right?" The entire stadium started cheering greats. "But sadly it has come to an end, but one last thing we have now is for the medals. Midnight, will you do the honors?" "Of course, Mike," she said as she walked up on the stage and cracked her WHP, making some men and women blush. "This year was amazing and we got to see lots of great students show what they are made of. Not only that, but for the first time in UA's history we have the #1 hero himself, 𝗷𝗵𝗃, present the winners with medals." Everyone cheered and waited for him to show up, but saw nothing, which confused everyone greatly until they saw the ground in front of the winners crack. "I am here, coming through the ground like a Diglett," yelled All Might with his head popping out of the ground. Everyone was confused what that was, while Izuku smacked his forehead at his brother's idiocy, since Pokemon ended over 200 years ago and basically no one knew what they were. All Might held his head down because the entire stadium was silent, so he pried himself from the ground and stood up. Anyways, this year was truly amazing and everyone who participated showed just how far UA has come and that the future is in great hands when it's time for the older generation to leave. Now onto the medals. He pulled out the medals and walked up to Shoka young Todoroki. You showed great strength and control with your quirk. I'm sure in the future you shall become a very powerful hero and a beacon for all young girls, said All Might, placing it around her neck and giving her a hug. Thank you, All Might, and I promise to become one of the strongest heroes ever, said Shoka with a smile. All Might smiled and walked to Katsuki. Young Bakugo, you showed great versatility with your quirk and being able to think on your feet along with great sportsmanship. You shall be a great hero and I look forward to working with you once you graduate and become a great hero, he said, placing the medal on his neck before he hugged him. I did what any good hero should. Also, Deku, better watch your back because I'm still aiming for the top and I ain't gonna let you get it that easily, Katsuki said with a smirk. Better get stronger than Kaken or else Todoroki will overtake you, said Izuku with a smirk. Everyone then saw a bolt of lightning go in between them, showing their rivalry. All Might chuckled and walked up to Izuku and a slightly bigger smile on his face that no one but Izuku noticed. Young 𝗵𝗃𝗃, you did amazing and showed the world that even when this old man retires that we shall have heroes strong enough to hold up society, he said before he put the medal on Izuku and gave him a hug. I'm so proud of you, little brother, and just know that Nana is too, he whispered. Izuku smiled and looked up at All Might. I promise to do my best to be a great hero once I get my license and you retire, All Might. Indeed. That is all, folks, and thank you for coming to this year's sports festival. Now let's go for our school motto. +Ultra/+Ultra. The class was given a week off to relax after the sports festival and for heroes to decide who to send internship offers to. While that was happening in a massive mansion, Momo was sitting in her room having a slight panic attack because her parents were throwing another charity party to commune with other families or companies and to donate to help people. But the reason why she was panicking was because her dad wanted her to invite Izuku to show everyone that she was engaged. Oh, what am I going to do? She thought, wondering if she should invite Izuku or not. If she didn't, then her mother would make her dress a little more revealing to get some of the boys her age's attention. She looked down at her phone and took a couple deep breaths to calm herself down before she started to text Izuku. Momo, 𝗵𝗃𝗃, I need your help. Izuku, sure, what's up? Momo, my mother and father are throwing a party and do you have a nice suit? Izuku, yeah. Why do you want me to come? Momo, if you could please. I'd rather be near someone I recognize than some strangers after my body. Izuku, yeah, I can. What day and time? Also, Eri asked if she could join. Momo, tomorrow at 6 p.m. and I don't see why you couldn't bring her. Izuku, alright, I'll see you then, and Eri says hi. Momo smiled and put her phone down before she buried her face in her pillow, squealing in happiness. Oh, now I should invite some of my other friends as well. It was the next day and Momo was standing in the ballroom off to the side, cursing her mother for changing her outfit on her. Her dress was now a red strapless dress which exposed a decent amount of her cleavage and most of her back for everyone to see. She also let her long obsidian-colored hair down, flowing down her back and over her shoulder. Some of the guys in the room were looking at her with lust, but thankfully she brought Jiro and Mina with her and they were helping keeping everyone away. Jiro was wearing a 𝗧𝗟𝗧 jacket along with a pink and purple dress, with the pink being the skirt. She also had gray leggings and pink shoes. Mina was wearing a white and blue dress with a white top and the skirt being blue, and hers was as revealing as Momo's since she didn't get embarrassed too easily. Man, Momo, you weren't kidding on the thirst of some of these boys. I'm surprised they are keeping it and they're so fart, said Jiro. Sigh, yeah, it can be very annoying at times, and thanks for both of you coming along with Izuku and Ochako. Himiko and Mei would have joined, but they were both busy with their families right now. I like this, it's so much fun. Plus Momo, you gotta ask Izu for a dance, cause if you don't ask for one quick enough I'll steal them all, said Mina with a grin. Momo blushed and looked away to hide it, but when she did that some guys walked up to them. Hey, how's it going? My name is 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and my family's company 𝗧𝗃 Industries is in Italy and is interested in starting business relations here in Japan. The girls could literally see the cockiness oozing off of him and could tell he was only talking to Momo to try and get in her. Nice to meet you, and my name is Momo Yaoyorozu, heiress to Yaoyorozu Enterprises, said Momo in a very well-practiced tone. Me and my friends were hoping you'd like to join us for a walk, he said, gesturing to his friends, which were simply two guys who boosted his ego. Momo knew he wasn't going to take no for an answer and saw that her parents as well as bodyguards were busy, so she decided to use the fact that her father wants her engaged to Izuku. I'd love to, but I'm waiting for my fiancé, so if you don't mind, could you leave me alone, said Momo. Jiro and Mina were confused till they remembered the whole thing with Izuku. All three of you scram or else he won't be happy, said Jiro with a glare. I wasn't talking to you, you 𝗧𝗵𝗲𝗧𝗟𝗏. I bet she only keeps you around to make herself look more attractive, and who would your fiancé be? He sneered. That'd be mean, said Izuku, walking up to him wearing a black suit and had a very dark glare on his face. Behind him was Ochako, who wore a black and pink dress with a red skirt, while next to her was Eri, who was in light blue dress and had her hair in a braid. Izuku pushed past them and walked up to Momo before he took her hand and gently it making her face go neon, while a tiny pout appeared on Mina's face and Jiro still had her head down from the comment. Now, said Izuku as he looked at them, and his pupils became slits and the red became crimson in his right eye and his left became an even brighter gold. You leave her and her friends alone, or I'll show you what real hellfire feels like. The three boys quickly ran away in fear given who Izuku was. They watched the sports festival and didn't want to get on his bad side. As soon as they were gone, Izuku immediately went into apology mode. 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗟𝗘 hand with 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗏 permission said 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 together. Momo smiled and shook her head. It's okay, Izuku, if it wasn't for you they may have caused a scene, said Momo. He was a little caught off when she called him by his first name but didn't mind it. Oh, first name basis, you're so dirty, Momo. What's next? Handholding, teased Mina, but if you looked closely you could tell she was slightly jealous. Momo covered her face in embarrassment and little Russian nesting dolls started to form from her back. Papa, look, they have candy apples, can I have some? Said Eri, walking up to him and pulling on his breathed leg. He sure thing, Snowball, said Izuku as he took her hand and led her to the table to get her apples. Just gotta remember to keep an eye on you. I don't know how you ended up with the same type of appetite as I have. That was something else that's been going on. Eri has been copying lots of things Izuku did and everyone found it adorable when they get into mutter fits. So how are you three? Asked Ochako, walking up to them. We're doing good. Just glad you and Izuku showed up to help us with them, said Momo. Ochako smiled but then looked at Jiro, who was looking down at herself with a sad, broken look on her face. Hey Kyoka, you okay? Said Mina, walking up to her. Yeah, I'm totally fine, said Jiro with a fake smile. Come on, let's go and enjoy the party, she said rather quickly as she walked off. I think it was because of what that man said about her, said Momo. What did he say? Asked Ochako. He called her flat and said we only keep her around so myself and the others look more attractive, said Momo. At the food table was Izuku, who was watching Eri happily munch on a candy apple. As she was doing that, he was also listening in to the others' conversation. He looked around the room until he saw Jiro outside on the balcony overlooking the city. Hey Snowball, could you go spend some time with Ochako so I can talk to Jiro, said Izuku. Okay Papa, said Eri as she grabbed another apple for herself and Ochako and walked off to her. Izuku waited until she got to said girl and offered her an apple before he walked off towards Jiro. Kyoka was looking over the city with sad look before she looked down again in disgust. He's right, I'm not attractive or well developed like the others. She was knocked out of her thoughts when Izuku stood next to her. Hey, you okay, Jiro? She looked up at Izuku and just smiled and nodded her head. Izuku just smiled and leaned on the railing. You can talk to me if you want and feel free to rant at me if you simply need to vent. They were both silent for a while before Kyoka spoke. Hey flame boy, am I attractive? He looked at her with a raised eyebrow, wondering why she's think that given she was a very attractive woman. She's insecure about herself given she isn't developed like the others, said Fox mentally. Izuku nodded his head, now understanding it fully. Jiro, look at me. She slowly turned her head and looked at his eyes and were almost lost in his appealing red and gold eyes that seemed to stare into your very soul. You are one of the most attractive women I have ever met and everything about you is perfect the way it is. You're funny, cute and make good jokes and helped keep Ida in check sometimes. You're talented in music and I know for a fact that one day you'll be one of the greatest heroes ever. Kyoka looked at him and smiled a little and felt so embarrassed that she grabbed her jacks and started to play with them. Do you really mean it? Every word, 𝗔𝗨𝗧𝗟𝗘. You are one of the most appealing women I know, and it's honestly strong to believe that people wouldn't see it, said Izuku. She smiled and did something that caught Izuku off guard. She his cheek. Don't tell anyone about that, okay? Izuku brought his hand to his cheek but nodded his head and walked back to the ballroom because he saw that Eri was waving him over. Kyoka watched him walk away and looked over the city with a smile. I see why they like him, but I'm not that easy, Izuku. A couple seconds later she finally realized what she did and blushed. Papa, said Eri running up to him, can I have a dance with you, Papa? The girls heard this and cooed at how adorable that was. Sure thing, Eri, said Izuku. They both went to the dance floor and started to dance with Eri giggling in happiness. Some other couples and people watching this thought it was adorable watching Izuku dance with his daughter, making her laugh and giggle. They continued dancing until Eri was done and they walked back, but Ochako quickly asked for a dance as well. Izuku wasn't one to say no, so took her out for a slow dance where he placed his hands on her hips and she placed hers around his neck. They continued to dance through the song, enjoying it, while Izuku ignored Ochako accidentally stepping on his feet, giving she wasn't talented with dancing even though Katsuki gave her a couple lessons which she was thankful for. Soon the dance came to an end, and before it did she stood up on her toes and him, which he happily returned. Next was Mina, who quickly asked for one, and given Mina loves to dance, she was an expert in the field and it showed when they both began dancing. At a pace and grace that made everyone else stop given the show. Izuku took her hand and spun her around towards him before he did it again, sending her away, but both still held hands when the song ended. Everyone started to clap from the amazing show of talent, and Izuku thanked the heavens that Nana and Auntie Mitsuki showed him how to dance, or else this would have been a disaster. Both Izuku and Mina walked back while at the same time most people were taking a break from dancing. Momo really wanted to ask him to a dance, but before she could, her father walked up to Izuku. Shimura-san, it's a pleasure to meet you again, said Mr. Yaoyorozu with a smile. Mr. Yaoyorozu, said Izuku. Please call me Ryo. I mean, soon you'll be my son-in-law after you marry my daughter, he said. If we get married, that's completely up to her. I won't force her into a loveless marriage, and I won't let you either, said Izuku. Ryo's eyes narrowed upon hearing this, and his guards were getting ready to subdue Izuku, but Ryo raised his hand. You realize who I am, boy, right? I can make your life a living hell if I wanted to, he said with his voice colder than ice. Endeavor is already on my SHT list along with Ida, so you won't be any different, and I'll only tell you this once. Decide. Future. The tension in the room was unbearable and could be cut with a knife. Dear, that's enough, said Ryo's wife, who looked like an older version of Momo but with slight wrinkles under her eyes and a touch of gray in her hair. You must be Izuku Shimura. Please forgive my husband, and don't worry, I'll make sure he doesn't do anything to you or anyone else close to you. Thank you, ma'am, said Izuku, giving her a small bow before he walked away. Izuku arrived back at the group and smiled, but then heard an announcement. All right, everyone, we have only one more song for a dance, then that will be the end for dancing tonight. He simply chuckled and looked over and noticed that Momo was twiddling with her fingers. Shimura, I was wondering if you'd like to, said Momo, but was interrupted by Jiro pushing her forward and Izuku having to catch her. She wants to dance with you. Momo looked beyond embarrassed but was pulled out of it by Izuku getting her attention. Would you like to dance with me? She meekly nodded her head and Izuku led her to the dance floor and placed one hand on her hip while the other held her hand. Momo placed her free hand on his shoulder and then they began slow dancing, swaying back and forth, never breaking eye contact. They continued dancing and Momo got a little bold and leaned her head against his seat while she wrapped her arms around his neck. Izuku responded by doing the same around her waist, and they both continued to dance like that. Maybe this is what love feels like, thought Momo happily. In a dark underground base, all for one sat upon his throne watching the sports festival for the 300th time, and he finally realized what Izuku's quirks were. So All Might has found a successor, and not only that but another phoenix has been born, he said, chuckling as he grabbed his side. To this day he could still feel the painful burning sensation of those black flames that scarred the whole right side of his body. A phoenix, sir. But those are just mythical creatures, said Garaki. Oh no, doctor, they are very much real, and I fought one before but at a great cost, and it was only thanks to my pet that I won, said All for One with a grin. pet. You shall learn in time when it comes that I fight another phoenix. They are not to be underestimated. They control the fires or heaven and hell itself, said All for One. But this time I'll be more prepared, and with my pet I'll finally be able to get the powers of the phoenix. Izuku opened his eyes and noticed he was in his living room, which confused him since he went to sleep in his bed. He was about to stand up and look around when the door opened and Ochako, Mei and Himiko walked in, except they looked 9 months pregnant. Good morning, Izuku, said the three, which confused Izuku since just yesterday he saw them and they were not pregnant. Then Momo, Mina, Jiro, Kendo, Nijire, and Shoka walked in and they were pregnant as well. Izuku looked beyond confused and was starting to feel concerned. Then the door opened again and Miruko, a younger Rei, Fuyumi, Ryukyu, Burnin, Lady Nagant, and Mandalay walked in as well and they were pregnant. All the women pulled up LTRSND pictures showing that they were all pregnant with twins. You got us pregnant and now you have to take responsibility, they all said simultaneously. Izuku did the only thing any person would do in that situation, he screamed. Ah! Izuku shot up trying to calm himself down from his nightmare. Eri woke up startled and looked at Izuku with slight fear in her eyes. Papa. Asterisk cuff. Asterisk cuff. Asterisk, sorry Eri. Bad dream. Said Izuku. Eri scooted a little closer and hugged him tighter to make him feel better. Thank you Snowball, said Izuku her horn before they both went back to sleep. All of Class 1A except Ida, who was thrown in a juvenile detention center, was sitting in class waiting. Izuku was working on a new journal while Eri was trying to copy him with her own, and everyone thought that it was absolutely adorable to watch. Morning class, said Aizawa walking into the room with a tired gaze. I'm sure you all had a fun break, but now it's time we get back to work. Excuse me Aizawa-sensei, what will we do about our open seat? We only have 19 students now, said Momo. Nizu is still looking for another student to join us, but he said something about not being opposed to people from other shows. Whatever that means, anyways, today you will have to choose which hero to work for. He then pushed a button and the projector turned on and everyone saw the votes. Izuku Shimura, 8,491 Shoka Todoroki, 5,820 Katsuki Bakugo, 5,735. The next closest person was Tokoyami, who had less than 1,000 votes. As you can see, this year is a little bit different from other years, and even international heroes got involved in the voting. So we allowed heroes to choose up to 3 votes to make it fair for everyone, said Aizawa. Izuku's jaw was on the floor, not believing how many votes he had. Papa, look, everyone wants to work with you since you're super awesome hero, said Eri excitedly. I'm not a hero yet, Eri, but I will be soon, said Izuku, rubbing the top of her head, making her lean into it. No, you're a hero since you're my hero, Papa, and I love you, said Eri, hugging him tightly. I love you as well, my little unicorn princess, said Izuku her horn. Husband material, thought Ochako, Momo, Shoka, Himiko, Mina, and even Jiro. Anyways, said Aizawa, trying to regain his composure from Eri's sheer cuteness. I'm not good at this part, so I'm going to leave this to Dash. Me, said Midnight, walking in. She stood in front of the class with a hand on her hip and a sultry grin on her face. You'll have to choose hero names and be warned that they will part of you for the rest of your life after your 3rd year, and you can't change it after that, said Midnight. She then handed everyone a whiteboard and walked back up to the front. Write down your hero name and come and present it to the class. Everyone immediately began working on hero names, and then Katsuki immediately stood up and walked to the front of the class. King Explosion Murder. No. Fudge. Izuku chuckled at Katsuki's antics and looked down at his whiteboard, which Eri was writing in. Are you making me a hero name, Unicorn Princess? Said Izuku. She said as she finished writing it and walked to the front with a big smile on her face. My papa's hero name will be Super Papa. Oh my god, she's too precious for this world, where everyone's thoughts. That's a very adorable name, sweetie, but I don't think your papa should have that name, said Midnight. Why not? Said Eri sadly, since her name for her papa wouldn't be good. WL. Then everyone would be calling him Papa, and I'm sure you wouldn't want other people doing that, now would you? Said Midnight. Eri's eyes widened before she ran over to Izuku and crawled up to his lap and hugged him. No, only I can call him Papa. What if your papa wants to get you a little brother or sister? Asked Himiko. Eri was silent for a little bit before she spoke. Then I'd be fine with that since only me and my siblings can call him papa. Alright, before we end up dying from Eri's sheer cuteness, let's get back to deciding hero names, said Midnight, trying her hardest to not have a cuteness heart attack. Everyone then went back to deciding hero names, and some showed what they thought would be good, but Midnight immediately shot it down. No. Why not? Because I said so. But your name is the 18+ Midnight, and look at your outfits. Yes, except I'm not naming myself after some horrifying monster from a movie franchise. What's wrong with Alien Queen? It's named after a monster. Mina groaned loudly and stomped off to her desk while muttering under her breath about how unfair it was. Hey Ashido, said Izuku, catching her attention, what about Zeno? Mina thought about it before she looked at Midnight. Yeah, what about Zeno? I guess that can work, said Midnight. Hey, said Mina, who walked over and hugged Izuku. Thanks Izu. No problem Ashi Mina, call me Mina. Izuku nodded his head and then went back to thinking up hero names. Snowflame, said Shoka, standing in front of the class. It's elegant and appealing, I love it, said Midnight happily. Thank you, my mom called me that and I liked it, said Shoka. Soon it was only Izuku, Katsuki, and ♀left who haven't decided hero names yet, but ♀ finally decided on one and presented it to the class. Was thinking over everything, trying to find the perfect hero name, and then he finally came up with one. He stood up and walked to the front of the class and presented it to them, the flame hero, Phoenix. He knew that calling himself that would raise some flags, but it was time he started to show just what he was capable of and could do. Oh, I like it. Soon everyone finished and Katsuki chose Ground Zero for his hero name. Good, and you'll have 3 days to choose who you wish to work under for the next 2 weeks, and once you decide who, put it on my desk. Also, just so you all know, after the internships UA will be opening up as a boarding school, and give these letters to your parents or guardians tonight, said Aizawa. He then left and everyone started to look through their packets to see what heroes sent them an offer. Holy CRPH, said Izuku, looking at the top names on his packet. All the top 10 except for Miruko sent him an offer to train under them for the next 2 weeks. Himiko popped her head over his shoulder and looked, and her own eyes widened at seeing that. That's awesome Aizu, she said before she his cheek. He smiled and leaned into her and her hand. Well, I think I know who I'll be working with. Oh, who will you be working with, Himiko? Oh, I had an invite from Ed and he'd help me with stealth, so I'm going with him, said Himiko. Wow, that's awesome. What about the rest of you? Asked Izuku. Best Genist, said Katsuki. Death Arms, said Jiro. Gunhead, so I can get better at martial arts, said Ochako. Hawks, said Tokoyami. My father, said Shoka, getting everyone's attention. Besides Shimura, he's the best fire user, so he'll help me with my quirk. 𝗬𝗓𝗵𝗃, said Momo before she saw Izuku's face change. Something wrong, Shimura? She's more of a celebrity hero, and unless you're planning to be one, I'd recommend finding someone else, said Izuku. Momo nodded and looked at her list before her eyes widened. Dabu. Sir Night Eye invited me. Oh, Uncle Night Eye. He can be a strong person to like, but if you can make him laugh, he'll be friendlier to you, said Izuku. So, Izuku, who you working for? Asked Ochako. All Might. X-Class 1A and some of 1B was at the train station with a police SCRT to keep the vultures away and some creepy fans. Shimura, let me have your babies, yelled a lady in the back before a police officer dragged her off. Izuku shivered at that and wished he could just fly to Might Tower to avoid them. The girls that liked him glared in that direction towards the creepier fans. Hey, Shimura, thanks for telling Yaoyorozu about 𝗬𝗓𝗵𝗃. She told me about her, so I knew to change who to work for, said Kendo with a kind smile. Oh, no problem, Kendo, I'm glad to help, said Izuku. So who are you working for? Oh, my grandpa. He's a retired pro hero and he said he'll make my martial arts even better than before, said Kendo. That's awesome, said Izuku. Alright, that's enough, said Aizawa. Remember to be nice and listen to your teacher's orders. Remember, you're also representing UA, so be on your best behavior, and problem child, don't do anything too stupid. I make no promises, said Izuku. Aizawa's eyes just narrowed in annoyance. Izuku then heard his train get called and gave both Ochako and Himiko a quick embrace, then walked over to Nana and Eri. "Bye Snowball, I'll see you in 2 weeks," said Izuku as he got on a knee in front of her. Eri quickly hugged him tightly. "I promise you'll see me in 2 weeks, okay?" "Okay, Papa. I love you." Izuku smiled in her horn, "And I love you even more, my little unicorn princess. Take good care of her, Grandma. Pete, please, I had to raise both your mom than you, and may I remind you that you were the one with a fire quirk so powerful you could level an entire city," said Nana. "𝗧𝗵𝗃," said Izuku, rubbing the back of his head. He gave her and Eri one last hug before he boarded his train. Jesus Christ, Toshi, why did you have to get such a giant building?" said Izuku, looking up at Might Tower. "Endeavors is taller since he can't handle the thought of All Might being better," said Fox. Izuku just sighed and walked in and saw dozens of heroes walking in and out of the building. They weren't all sidekicks, but they did work for him to help patrol cities. "Can I help you?" said a woman's voice. "Oh Shimura, it's been so long, how are you?" "Hey Susan, how's it going?" Susan was a tall blonde woman with bright green eyes and a decent bust. She wore a red sweater with a cream-colored skirt that went to her knees. She has been All Might's secretary for over 15 years and has followed him through all these years. "It's going good. Oh, I still remember back when you were 10 and would come here to annoy All Might," Susan said, giggling. "Yeah, oh, how's Akira and your kid?" said Izuku. "Me and Akira are doing really good. She loves being a stay-at-home mom with our little boy." "Oh, I'm sorry, All Might is expecting you. Sorry again for keeping you waiting," said Susan. "Don't worry, Susan, it's okay. Tell Akira I said hi," said Izuku, walking away. Izuku was walking to Toshi's office and was about to open the door when he heard voices. "Ing American PP in me, Toshi," said a voice Izuku found extremely familiar. "I'd love to as well, but we're co-workers. Besides, I won't be seeing you for a while." Oh, I'm fine with waiting, but when we see each other again I want you to break my desk with your Texas smash." Izuku heard enough and slammed the door open. What the F, Toshi, and why at work? All Might panicked and did the only thing anyone would do in that situation. He threw his monitor and PC across the room into the wall, destroying them. "Who was it?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." They both continued staring at each other for a long time. "Let's start your training." "I'm telling Grandma." "Please don't." Izuku woke up in the same dark void that Fox lives in, and he saw said Phoenix sitting before a ball of flames that was flickering white/gold and black. "Oh hey Fox, what's up?" said Izuku, wondering why Fox brought him here. "Izuku, it's time we talked and you learned the full truth about your powers," said Fox, looking at him seriously. "What do you mean?" said Izuku, sitting down across from him. "You're my quirk, so what do you mean learn the full truth?" "I'm not actually your quirk. The only quirk you do have is one for all. I'm a phoenix, and when I saw you when you were born I had a vision that you shall be the one to defeat him, and so I made myself appear as your quirk." "I what? So you're not a quirk, then what?" "I'm a phoenix. My kind has been alive way before humans ever existed, and we helped keep the world in balance, but then humans were created and at first we paid them no mind. But over time they changed and started declaring war on each other, and we tried to stop them but they ignored us, and when we thought that was bad some of us were consumed by evil by him, and then we had to fight each other, and it wasn't long before it was only me and other phoenix that was left alive." "Wait, who's the other phoenix and who's this him?" said Izuku, looking at Fox, confused still since this was completely new and changed everything. "My older sister, she's the other phoenix, and she fell to darkness and was consumed by the lust of power that the flames of hell give you, for as the saying goes, you look into the abyss long enough then the abyss looks back. Tell me about the history of the phoenixes. I need to understand what's going on and why only." "Now you're telling me the truth," said Izuku. Fox got sat on the ground, and next to him a rainbow of different flames appeared before it, showed a appealing mountain range with lush forests and rivers going through it. "This is where we once lived, and we traveled the world from here to see it and help keep everything in balance in a sense. But of course we weren't arrogant enough to think we were in charge of the world, so we simply helped the world and helped humans we viewed as worthy of our help, hence why you have tales of phoenixes in the world that healed wounds or helped great heroes. But we also knew that humanity was a truly evil species, so we kept our space from them up to the point we were just myths or stories you'd tell your kids to put them to sleep." We continued to watch, and then some humans were consumed by the darkness of their hearts and craved our power, so they tried to take it, but we were too powerful for them to defeat, so they did something they should never have done. What did the humans do? Said Izuku, looking at the flames before he gaze went back to Fox. They released the basilisks and the one they serve, the basilisk demon. He is the only thing that can kill phoenixes, and he used his wisdom and cunning to trick humans along with some of our own species. It wasn't long before we saw it, but by then it was too late and we began fighting each other in a bloody war that turned great forests into desert wastelands, or we boiled great lakes into nothing. Wait, the basilisk exists? Said Izuku. He's read old books and it talked about the great serpent whose venom was so toxic you'd die within a minute or less from a single drop. If you looked into its eyes you'd drop dead on the spot, and it was said that if a phoenix looked into its eyes they'd permanently die as well. Yes. They are very powerful evil creatures that were twisted by the darkness that lays in everyone's heart, and they let it consume them, and now they seek nothing more than to kill us all and make all of humanity their food source for their 𝗵𝘃𝗲. But what about your older sister then? And why is none of this written down in history by humans? Said Izuku. She was seduced by the flames of hell since she saw our parents be killed by the basilisk demon himself, and she tried to kill him, but he escaped with one of his horns being cut off by her. She raged and searched the whole world for him but couldn't find him, and her anger grew before she became completely consumed by the flames of hell, and her once appealing gold and white feathers became black as her soul also became black. Other phoenixes saw her power and grief and were pulled into the darkness like her, and it wasn't long before we began fighting them along with fighting the basilisks. And for why it was never written down, we lived far away from humans, and sadly any that were near us were killed by our flames, so people simply thought they were wildfires. And I'm guessing after all the fighting finally ended, me and her were all that was left along with a couple basilisks and the demon himself. I tried to talk to my sister, but her heart was consumed by darkness, and now she cares for nothing but to destroy them and anyone who gets in her way. Where is she now? Along with the basilisks? I don't know, but after the battles I was left weak, and I needed to find a way to end all this needless bloodshed, and that's when I had a vision about you, a human who will forego his darkness and will lead humanity to a new era where it seeks happiness and hope instead of darkness that consumes us all. Also a human who shall finally put an end to the basilisks and my sister. Isn't it possible to try and talk to her and bring her back? Siblings shouldn't be forced to kill each other. Fox just shook his head. I tried, but nothing changed her ways, and she tried to kill me last time. I'm sorry for putting my burdens on you, Izuku, but you were the only hope left for this world to end this great evil. It's okay. I would hate to put this burden on anyone else, and because of that I'm glad it's me who shall bear it. I promise you, Fox, I shall end this great evil, and if it's possible I will try and save your sister, said Izuku before he left his mindscape since it was morning. Fox seemed happy before he turned around and looked at 8 other figures. He will need all the help he can get, and it'll take us all working together to end this evil. One of them, who had shoulder-length white hair and green eyes, walked forward, and we'll make sure we do. It's no longer about defeating my brother, it's about ending this great evil. The 7th figure, who was all silver and looked to made out of fire in the shape of a woman, she walked to Fox and held out a small star that looked like water. It's time he starts to use all of your quirks. I'll be sure to always protect him, Nana. Even if it costs me my own life, I promise I won't let Izuku die. The 7th's face changed till it could be seen, showing Nana's smiling face as Fox took the ball of water, and the whole mindscape changed as now a massive roaring river flowed through it next to the fire. Izuku opened his eyes and sat up in bed and thought over everything him and Fox talked about before his eyes looked out at Tokyo. I will stop all this evil. He then took a shower and got dressed and looked at the time, seeing it was 9 a.m., and he walked downstairs where he saw All Might drinking some tea, and in front of him was a big American breakfast. Good morning, Izuku. How was your first night here? Said All Might with his giant smile. It was good. Just not used to the bed, said Izuku, not wanting to tell Toshi about his talk with Fox last night. So what will we be doing today? Today we'll have a light spar and then some training, and if we have time we'll go out on a patrol together. Oh, right before I forget, Nezu called in 2 favors from people who will be here tomorrow to help you with our 2 weeks of training. Oh, that's good. Izuku stopped when he felt his phone go off, and he picked it up, seeing that it was Nan. And hello. Hey Izuku, I took Eri to kindergarten and she was getting bullied so I brought her home, said Nana. All Might flinched when he saw his table snap in half from Izuku's grip on it and the room went from 74 degrees Fahrenheit to 180 degrees Fahrenheit in 5 seconds. I see. Well, Grandma, I'll be home in a couple minutes then, said Izuku in suppressed rage. What happened? Said All Might. Someone was bullying my little unicorn princess and now I'm gonna go comfort her and try not to kill said bully, said Izuku as he stood up and left. Izuku opened the door to his grandma's house and could hear crying from upstairs, so he climbed up the stairs and saw Eri on his bed crying, "You okay, Snowball?" "Papa," said Eri as she ran up to him and hugged him as she continued to cry, "They called me a villain since I have red eyes. They said I don't deserve to have a pee, Papa, am I a villain?" "Of course not, Eri, don't listen to them," said Izuku, hugging her tighter and her forehead. "You're my little unicorn princess and look at me." Eri looked up at Izuku's red and gold eye. "One of my eyes are red and I'm training to be a hero, so that means you're not a villain." "Thank you, Papa, can you stay home tonight please?" said Eri. "Of course, princess." "I love you, Papa." "I love you as well, Eri." Hello readers, it is I, NezutheRatGod, and I have a couple options for the 20th student to add to class 1A. Albedo from Overlord. 𝗵𝗃𝗃. Those are the options. And if you don't like him then oh well, said Nezu, who then walked away to work on another story or play a game. "Ow," said Momo, holding her arm as Bubble Girl applied some bandages on her arm. Sorry about that, but I thought it'd be a good idea to push you harder," said Bubble Girl. "Don't worry, it's okay," said Momo, who tried to hide her blush. "I just wish it was Izuku who did it," she mumbled under her breath. Bubble Girl looked at her and saw Momo's blush. It took her a couple seconds before she realized what Momo was implying. She's an 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃. Elsewhere, Himiko was sitting on the floor with a blindfold over her eyes and was listening in for every sound she could hear. She slightly twitched when she heard something and went to look at it but felt a blade to her throat. Just because you can hear a sound doesn't mean it's not a distraction. You must learn to be able to tell the difference, said 𝗳𝗏𝗃. "Yes, Sensei," said Himiko, "I'll do better next time." "It's okay to make mistakes. That's why I'm here to help make sure you don't make them out in the field where you can get hurt or someone else can't," said 𝗳𝗏𝗃. "So what can I do to get better faster?" said Himiko. "You're already making amazing progress. In the last week you far surpassed my expectations and soon you'll be on par with me or beyond that," said 𝗳𝗏𝗃. "Thank you, Sensei. Iza said the same thing about me and said giving time I can give almost all stealth heroes a run for their money," said Himiko. "Izu. Oh, you mean the winner of the sports festival," said 𝗳𝗏𝗃, which got a nod from Himiko. "I was hoping to possibly train him, but oh well, I think I got a better student since I can train you in my ways of stealth." Himiko smiled at hearing that. "Well then let's get back to training so I can get stronger." Ochako was slammed into the ground and she groaned in pain as she forced her body up. "You're getting really good, Uraraka. With your previous training all I have to do is help refine you so you can be an even better fighter," said Gunhead. "It's thanks to my Oni-chan, Izuku and Himiko that I'm this good," said Ochako, standing up. She got in her battle stance and Gunhead smiled at seeing that since it had no holes in the fighting style, he got in his own as they stared at each other. Ochako moved forward and tried to punch him, but he easily raised his arm to block it, but then Ochako ducked down and did a leg sweep, knocking him to the ground and placing him in an arm lock. "Amazing, Uraraka, but only one problem." He then forced his body up, overpowering her, and then put her in a double arm lock. "Gotta work on your strength, and remember I got 2 arms." Shoka created a massive firestorm that made Endeavor dodge the attack but then felt his foot get frozen to the ground by ice. Before he could move, another wall of flames was sent at him. He quickly raised his body temperature, melting it all and making her fire attack useless. "You have to try better than that, Shoka. You're still not strong enough," said Endeavor, glaring at her. "Also remember your purpose is to surpass All Might." Her hand clenched in anger. "I'm going to go see my mom," she said as she left. She passed Burnin, who waved at her, and she simply gave her a head nod and continued walking until she arrived where her driver was. After a quick ride she arrived at the hospital where her mom was. She got in the elevator and rode it to the floor her mom was on and walked down the hall to it. "Knock knock, you can come in," said a voice behind the door. Shoka opened the door and entered the room, seeing her mom sitting on her bed looking out the window towards the city. Rei's room was slightly bigger than a regular patient's was, and it had a single bed, a love seat couch, a small bookshelf that had a couple books in it, and finally a small TV. "Hello, Mom," said Shoka looking at Rei. "Hello, my little snowflame," said Rei looking at her. "You look so appealing." Shoka smiled and walked over to Rei and hugged her tightly. "I'm happy to see you again." "It's only been a week, honey," said Rei as she trailed her fingers through her daughter's hair. "Also, I heard from Fuyumi about the possible arranged marriage between you and that 𝗵𝗃𝗲 boy." Rei then noticed that Shoka's cheeks got a little red from hearing that, and she realized that Shoka actually liked him. "Does my little snowflame have a crush?" "Mom." "Oh, come on, you can tell me. Besides, I'd like to know more about him since he'll be my son-in-law soon," said Rei, giggling, seeing that Shoka was blushing more. "He's a cute one, and I'd like to meet him to make sure he's a good one for you." It was now late at night, and both Izuku and All Might were soaring through the sky. They left Tokyo and they were heading towards Hosu, where they heard about the hero killer 𝗧𝗵𝗲. "Izuku, I give you permission to use your quirk and fight villains if something comes up, got it?" said All Might. "Got it, Toshi," said Izuku. He looked off in the distance and saw a massive firestorm going off in the city. "The buildings are on fire." "Right, let's double time it." Both of them shot off, racing to Hosu even faster now. They easily broke the sound barrier. In Hosu, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was fighting a 𝗵𝗃𝗲 while also teaching Shoka the benefits of using powerful fire attacks, even though about 1/3 of all the fires were caused by him getting reckless. "Gotta say, I love working with the boss, but he can get a bit excessive," said 𝗵𝗃𝗲 standing next to Shoka. "That's an understatement of the century," said Shoka in a monotone voice. Fair enough. So where's your boyfriend?" said 𝗵𝗃𝗲 with a feral grin as she noticed Shoka had a slight tint of red. "I don't have one now, come on, let's get to work," said Shoka, walking forward. "You're no fun, is it? The winner of the sports festival. I gotta admit, for a teen he's pretty hot. Maybe I can give him a lesson on how hot fire really is," said 𝗵𝗃𝗲, enjoying Shoka's reaction. Before Shoka could say anything, they all heard an explosion and saw a massive 𝗵𝗃𝗲 tear through a building. It was covered in some type of chitin-like armor all over its body, and it charged at them. Detroit smash. Everyone looked up in the sky and saw All Might rocketing towards the 𝗵𝗃𝗲. He reared his fist back and slammed it onto its skull, killing it instantly since he knew this was the only way to save the people turned into them. "Holy SHT, this is the first time I've ever met him in person. His strength is something else," said 𝗵𝗃𝗲. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was glaring at All Might since this was supposed to be the day he taught Shoka just how powerful fire was. "Haha, don't worry everyone. But because I'm here," said All Might, standing up with his trademark smile. "Phoenix, take care of these flames." Everyone looked up and saw Izuku flying in the air using his wings and small jets of flames from his feet to stay afloat in the air. He raised his arm up and tiny wisps of fire shot out, hitting all the out-of-control flames in the area. "Snuff out." With those two words and a simple snap of his fingers, all the raging fire immediately went out. "All Might, I'm gonna go and take out that flying 𝗵𝗃𝗲 and make sure none escaped," said Izuku as he flew off to look for that 𝗵𝗃𝗲. As he flew through the sky, in the corner of his eye, he saw the flying 𝗵𝗃𝗲 terrorizing some people. He quickly shot off, heading towards it, and created a flame WHP to entangle it. Once the 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was entangled, he spun around and swung the 𝗵𝗃𝗲 into the ground with so much force it killed the creature on impact. "Are you all alright?" Izuku looking at the people. The civilians nod at their heads while one of the officers who Izuku recognized as the chief stood up. "Boy, what are you doing? You're using your quirk illegally. Leave this to heroes and the police," said the chief. "I was given permission, so I am doing my job. Now if you need me, I need to go save people," said Izuku as he flew off. "𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗃, said Shigaraki, watching his plan fall apart thanks to All Might and Izuku getting involved. "First he takes my hand and now he's ruining everything else." "Tamura, calm down. We still have 3 more 𝗵𝗃𝗲 and they are still causing havoc within the city. Plus the hero killer is still out hunting for heroes," said Kurogiri calmly. Shigaraki glared at him but said nothing as he looked at his prosthetic hand. Nothing Garaki or even his emissary did allowed him to get his hand back, so now he has to use this. "I will kill him. I'll make sure I decay him nice and slow. When I do so, he can feel every second of it," said Shigaraki, grinning darkly. Kurogiri said nothing as he continued to watch the city. seeing Nomu or heroes go around fighting. Izuku was flying back to where All Might was when he saw something in the corner of his eye. It was the hero native and he was slumped against the wall bleeding and a man was standing over him. "With your death a more pure era of heroes shall be born," said 𝗧𝗍 as he lowered his sword to kill him. The sword was plunged down but before it could hit the hero 𝗧𝗍 jumped back but wasn't fast enough to dodge the kick that broke one of his ribs and sent him flying back. 𝗧𝗍 flipped in the air and landed on the ground using his sword to slow him down till he came to a complete stop and he looked up to see the person who kicked him. "You won't get any further, 𝗧𝗍. If you want to kill him or anyone else you'll have to go through me," said Izuku as he got ready for the fight. What confused Izuku was that he saw a smile form on 𝗧𝗍's face because of that. "So tell me, boy, why are you truly here?" "I'm here to make sure no one else dies. That's the job of a hero. Save everyone no matter the sacrifice you must make to do it as long as everyone goes home," said Izuku. An almost insane grin formed on 𝗧𝗍's face from hearing that as he started to laugh like someone told him a hilarious joke. "Yes. You're what I've been looking for. You're a true hero and not only that but All Might deemed you worthy as well since he's training you." "What do you mean?" "You are worthy like All Might. Only you two are worthy of being called true heroes," said 𝗧𝗍. "Anyone can be a worthy hero and can become one if they give it their all." 𝗧𝗍 couldn't help but smile even more from hearing that. "I won't kill you so I'll allow you to walk away and not get hurt," said 𝗧𝗍. "What kind of hero would I be if I just walk away so you can kill someone who doesn't deserve it?" said Izuku. "Then I guess we shall fight then." They both stared at each other before Izuku shot off in surprising speeds and tried to kick 𝗧𝗍, but the villain dodged the attack and swung his sword at him but created a flame gauntlet so hot it melted the sword before it hit his skin. 𝗧𝗍 jumped back and threw two knives at Izuku only for him to do a Delaware smash and send them flying back which made 𝗧𝗍 duck under them. Izuku then created his flame wings and shot out hundreds of feathers at 𝗧𝗍 which made him click his tongue in annoyance and jump back to dodge them but got hit by a couple. "You're even better than what I saw in the sports festival," said 𝗧𝗍 happily. "As a hero I always have to train to get stronger to protect those I care for and everyone else." The both charged at each other and Izuku cranked the power up to 5% and faster than 𝗧𝗍 was expecting slammed his fist into 𝗧𝗍's gut folding his body from the sheer force of the blow. As 𝗧𝗍 went flying Izuku saw that his arm was bleeding and looked up seeing that was about to lick his BLD. He reached his arm out and willed his fire a light from his BLD which burned 𝗧𝗍's tongue. "So you can even make your own BLD ignite in flames, how fascinating. Also, how did you know to not allow me to drink your BLD?" "Well, given the fact that Native had a cut injury and all your weapons show that they are cutting weapons meaning you need them for your quirk. Then there's the fact that Native wasn't moving even though his injury wasn't life-threatening or anything like that. The last one was you trying to lick it, that all but told me that your quirk is BLD related and you have to lick your victim's BLD for it to activate," said Izuku. "Yes. You are a true hero to be able to figure all of that out just by seeing it once," yelled 𝗧𝗍 in glee. "Plus it also helps that one of my girlfriends has a BLD-related quirk and needs to drink it as well," said Izuku. 𝗧𝗍 couldn't stop smiling at the simple fact that the boy in front of him was a true hero. He didn't run in the sign of danger and only wants to fight him because someone's life is in danger. Izuku looked at 𝗧𝗍 for a second and then his brain clicked and a strategy came to his mind. "I really hope this isn't getting recorded or else 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃 and May will kill me." He shot off towards 𝗧𝗍 while launching a massive fireball at him forcing him to jump, which is exactly what he wanted. As 𝗧𝗍 was up in the air he suddenly saw fire chains shoot out and he blocked them all with his sword but was then met by Izuku who shot up at him and tried to punch him. 𝗧𝗍 used his blade and tried to stab Izuku but he let the blade stab through his forearm and grabbed 𝗧𝗍's own forearm with an iron grip. "Detroit smash!" yelled Izuku as his other arm slammed into 𝗧𝗍's face knocking him out cold. Izuku slowly glided down and landed on the ground before he restrained 𝗧𝗍 with his fire chains and walked towards Native and helped him up. "Damn it, what are you doing here, All Might? This area isn't even near your usual patrol area," growled 𝗫𝗏𝗏. When I heard that Hosu was under attack and that the hero killer was here, me and my student came here to help out," said All Might. As that was happening, the police were finishing up securing the area when everyone heard someone yell, and they all looked, seeing Izuku dragging a unconscious Stain and helping a injured native. The medics immediately ran over and helped native up while the police came and quickly restrained Stain with quirk cuffs and brought him to the police cruiser. "Good job, Phoenix," said All Might happily, seeing as Izuku took down the notorious hero killer. "I was just look out, another 𝗵𝗃." Everyone looked at saw a massive heavily burned 𝗵𝗃 charging at them. Most of its body was covered in burns and it had two large poles coming out of its back producing electricity. Izuku quickly raised his arm and willed his flames, but something else happened. A massive wave of water formed from thin air and slammed into the 𝗵𝗃, surrounding it in water, covering its entire body in it. As every stood frozen, Izuku suddenly lost concentration and fell backwards unconscious, leaving the 𝗵𝗃 to be dealt with by the heroes. Izuku opened his eyes, seeing a white ceiling with bright lights. He looked around, seeing that he was in a hospital room. He slowly stood up and grabbed his forehead as he tried to remember why he passed out, and after a couple of moments he remembered what happened. I used water," said Izuku, still trying to process how he was able to use that when he should only be. Her head in agreement. "Thank you, but I don't think I'll ever be leaving this hospital," said Rei as she gripped the hem of her hospital. "Why not?" said Izuku, confused. "The nurses say I'm all fine, but the doctor won't let me leave. He says I'm not mentally stable." It didn't take a genius to realize what she was implying. It was because of 𝗵𝗃𝗏 that she was still being kept here as a prisoner. Just then loud footsteps could be heard before the door opened, revealing said man enter the very room. Rei saw him and she immediately felt fear enter her body as she tried to make herself seem as small as possible and hide behind Izuku's back to hopefully not be seen by him. "Boy, good you're here," said 𝗵𝗃𝗏, marching into the room like he owned the place. He then crossed his arms and glared at Izuku. "You shall marry 𝗧𝗪𝗃 by the end of this month and put a baby in her." 𝗧𝗪𝗃's eyes hardened hearing that, and Rei let out a gasp which made 𝗵𝗃𝗏 look at her for the first time since he entered the room. "Good you're still here. You're still able to produce children, so you'll also bear 𝗬𝗫𝗼𝗄's child to create a child that will surely surpass All Might." Rei's eyes widened in fear of that as she subconsciously put her arms around herself to try and protect herself. Izuku had enough of this and stood and walked right up to 𝗵𝗃𝗏 and stared him right in the eyes, with 𝗵𝗃𝗏 only have 3 inches on him in height. "I won't be doing a DMN thing you say, and neither will they," said Izuku. "What?" growled 𝗵𝗃𝗏 as the temperature of the room spiked. 𝗧𝗪𝗃 was about to use her ice to counteract this, but then green flames surrounded her and her mom. 𝗧𝗪𝗃 heard her mom let out a loud yelp as she tried to get away from the fire, and 𝗧𝗪𝗃 quickly tried to calm her down. "Mom, it's okay, Izuku's flames can't hurt you." Rei looked at 𝗧𝗪𝗃 with fear written all over her face, but then noticed that the flames weren't hot and they weren't hurting her. She then looked at them and felt that same kind warmth she felt when Izuku hugged her. That warmth was in those flames he created. Neither Rei nor 𝗧𝗪𝗃 could feel the heat in the room, but it was raising very quickly and was almost at 700 degrees and still climbing as both Izuku and 𝗵𝗃𝗏 glared at each other. "You will not force anyone in your family to do anything they don't want," said Izuku, glaring at him as his flames spiked to 2000 degrees, making 𝗵𝗃𝗏 actually flinch, feeling the heat. "I can do whatever I want, and I'm ordering you to place a child in my daughters to create a powerful children, along with that used up beach. She should be good enough to pump out one more," said 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Izuku's anger snapped, and faster than anyone could see, he choke slammed 𝗵𝗃𝗏 into the wall and lifted the hero off the ground by his neck. "Insult again," said Izuku as he applied pressure, and black flames started to appear on his arm and were drawing closer to 𝗵𝗃𝗏's neck. The hero kept gasping for air, so he tried to use his flames to burn Izuku, but then something else happened that put pure primal fear into him. When he looked into Izuku's eyes, he saw a massive bird glaring into his very soul with a gaze that could burn anything and everything under its gaze. Izuku's hands then sparked with purple flames before he dropped 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 to the ground, where he was gasping for air and coughing. Once the hero stood up, he noticed something. The room was cold and he couldn't ignite his flames. "I can control any and all fire, 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏, so as long as you're near me you can't hurt anyone with your disgusting flames," said Izuku. 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 growled in rage as he stormed out of the room to lick his pride. Ray couldn't believe her eyes. The man who made over 20 years of her life nothing but a living hell was just defeated by a teenager. The flames what once burned every form of happiness and hope in her life left, and she was now protected by flames that promised to never harm her. "Izuku," said Ray as she shakily stood up. Yes, he was cut off when he felt the woman hug him tightly and he felt ice-cold tears land on his shoulder. "Thank you, and please don't let him hurt me or my family," said Ray. "I promise, Ray, I'll talk to my grandma and try to get your family under our care and protection, okay?" said Izuku. Ray nodded her head before she felt an arm around her and saw that it was from her daughter. "Thank you, Izuku," said Shoka. "No problem, Shoka," said Izuku as he hugged them both back. "Oh, Izuku, I forgot to tell you something," said Fox suddenly inside his head. "What is it, Fox? I'm kind busy." "Well, as you know, you inherited my powers, but I also forgot to mention something that's also important. You'll also go through mating like I do, where your body will produce a pheromone that makes you horny, and that any females that are interested in you will be even more interested in you and will want to mate with you." "What?" "Yep, so have fun with that, and just know it starts now and won't end till the end of summer," and like that Fox left. Please tell me he was lying. He then felt Shoka hug him tighter, and surprisingly Ray did it slightly as well. God damn it, Fox. As this was happening, All Might was currently having a meeting with two female heroines, with one having a rabbit and the other a dragon quirk. Apparently Nezu had some dirt on them, so they are now gonna help train Izuku. Elsewhere, Izuku's girlfriends and girls that liked him saw the news, and they were all on the way to the hospital to check on him. At UA, Nezu was cackling as he finished signing the acceptance form of a new student that will be joining 1A and how the classes will be moving into the dorms before summer break. Himiko just got off the train and was walking to the hospital Izuku was at. She was wearing a red and black checkered skirt that was a little above her knees. She also had a black buttoned-up shirt that showed some cleavage. Instead of her usual hair buns, she decided to let her hair down since she knew Izuku really liked it with her hair down. She also had some light eyeliner and lip gloss. She knew she didn't have to wear makeup since Izuku found her appealing regardless, but she felt like putting some on to really catch his attention. She bit her lip when she remembered Izuku's fight at Hosu she saw on TV. He had a couple of injuries, and when she saw him bleeding a little, she was turned on by it. She of course felt ashamed by that, but remembered that Izuku didn't mind at all, or as he said, "It's just another thing to love about you, my little vampire." Himiko let out a small giggle remembering that, and she looked up and saw the hospital. She entered it walking up to the lady at the front desk and thankfully getting Izuku's room. As she got in the elevator, she started to play with her hair as she remembered that the others that are coming to see him won't be there for another 2 to 3 hours. That meant she can have him all to herself. Soon the elevator door opened and she walked down the hall and soon arrived at Izuku's room, knocking on the door. "Come in." Himiko opened the door and saw Izuku, and her smile grew, but her nose twitched slightly. She didn't know what it was, but something about him made him even more alluring. "Oh, Himiko, how are?" said Izuku looking over at her, but his brain short-circuited seeing how appealing she was. I guess I broke you," she said with a fanged smile as she walked towards him. "So how are you?" "I'm doing good. I'm gonna be leaving the hospital in a couple hours so I can get back to training. What about you, Himiko?" "I'm doing really good, especially now that I'm here with you," she said. She didn't know what it was, but something else about him was turning her on. "That's good, and I have something important to tell you and Ochako along with me," said Izuku. "Oh," said Himiko as she sat down on the side of his bed and gently trailed her hand on his. "Well, Fox was a butt, and just the other day decided to tell me that I will go through mating and my body releases pheromones that make women that like me want to mate with me." "Well, I guess we just have to try then," said Himiko, straddling his waist and pushing him down. Wait, Himiko, this is just the 𝗧𝗪. He was cut off when she leaned down and pulled him into a deep embrace, pressing her body against his. "I don't care. I know for a fact this is also what I want, Izu. I've been craving for you for so long, and now that I get you all to myself right now." Izuku watched in awe as she grabbed her shirt and undid the buttons, revealing her large belly that were held back by a black lace belt. "I want you," she said as she him deeply again, trailing her hands over his stomach and feeling his well-developed muscles. As she continued to deepen the embrace, Izuku's defenses finally caved and he her back with her, opening her mouth to let him explore it with his tongue. They continued the lip lock for 5 whole minutes while Izuku also began to explore her body with his hands 𝗳𝗏𝗍 her BRST and but along with her thighs. 𝗵𝗃𝗀 was in cloud 9 and was grinding herself against something strong and long. "Izu," she said, breaking the lip lock, "please give it to me, I can't take it any more, I need you." Izuku pulled her into an embrace and she felt him pull his and underwear down and she almost gasped at the monster she was now grinding on. After a little bit of fumbling she lined it up with her entrance and sat down. 2 hours later Ochako, Momo, Mina and Jiro arrived at the hospital and when they reached Izuku's room they opened the door to an empty room but heard the shower running. "I guess Shimura is taking a shower," said Momo. Maybe I can help him wash his back," said Mina teasingly. The girls then noticed that Kyoka's face was neon red and the reason why was because she could hear 𝗵𝗃𝗀's from the bathroom. "Izuku, please don't stop. I'm about to come again. I won't, my little vampire." Shifting was then heard and 𝗵𝗃𝗀's were an even higher pitch. "Too deep. Too deep. You're hitting my womb. Stop." "I don't think so, besides you know the safe word." Kyoka kept getting redder and she let out a tiny squeak when she finally heard both of them orgasm. Kyoka, are you okay?" asked Mina, wondering what's with her friend. "Yep. I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight hearing that." "Thank God you can make yourself infertile by sending massive amounts of heat to your ball, killing the 𝗬𝗏𝗻," said 𝗵𝗃𝗀, happy since that meant they could go raw all they wanted. "I need a cold shower," screamed Kyoka in her head. A minute later Izuku walked out only wearing a towel. "Oh hey girls, what's up?" said. Girls blushed from seeing him like that and that weird smell in the air and lastly the smell of SEC coming from the bathroom. "Izu, who's out there?" said 𝗵𝗃𝗀, drying herself off. All the girls went neon as they saw 𝗵𝗃𝗀 walk out covering herself with a towel. Izuku and 𝗵𝗃𝗀 just had easy, they all thought, except for Kyoka. They all felt jealous since they weren't his first and that 𝗵𝗃𝗀 beat them to it. "Oh hey girls, how are ya?" said 𝗵𝗃𝗀, walking past them to grab her clothes which she disregarded. "I'm gonna go and get dressed and thank you Izuku." Both of them each other and Izuku smacked her but making her jump a little and blush. "We can frisky later and I'll let you smack it all want then," she said him again and walking back to the bathroom. Momo's face got redder hearing that and then thoughts entered her head about him spanking her and telling her she's been a bad girl. "So why are all of you here?" said Izuku looking at the girls and he had a different aura around him. He seemed more confident and wasn't embarrassed about only having a towel on him. "Well, Ochako had a small nosebleed looking at him. We heard you got hurt so we wanted to check on you." "Oh well, that's sweet of you, my little machi," said Izuku, pulling her into a hug in her forehead. Momo, Mina and Kyoka felt a tinge of jealousy seeing that but Mina puffed her cheeks. "No fair, I want some love too, flame boy," said Mina as she poked his. She was then pulled into a hug and her body was pressed against Izuku and her face went lilac. "You get a hug too, Ashido." Mina definitely wasn't gonna complain and hugged him back, enjoying it. "Oh, so how's everyone's training going?" said Izuku looking up at Momo and Kyoka since both Ochako and Mina were too busy hugging him. "Well, my training with Night Eye is going really well. He's teaching me how to predict my enemies' moves and to think fast so I don't freeze," said Momo, playing with a strand of her hair. "That's amazing, Momo. I'm happy that Uncle Night Eye is training you. What about you, Jiro?" "I've been training with Death Arms," she said, playing with her jack and looking away. "He's an okay teacher, but I was hoping he'd at least teach me how to fight." "Well, how about after we move into the dorms I can help teach ya? Me and Kaken help train 𝗵𝗃𝗀 and Ochako. Izu and Katsuki are good teachers. Though Katsuki tends to let his anger get the best of him," said Ochako, laughing. "I'd like that," said Kyoka. "For me, I was training under Yoroimasha. He's bit of a party pooper and prefers things to be traditional," said Mina, getting Izuku's attention. "But I'd also like to train with ya, Izuku." Izuku's eyes had a slight gleam as he stared into hers with a gaze that made her knees weak. "Just know I won't go easy." "The rougher the better," said Mina. Momo's face went red again from dirty thoughts and she was debating on kicking 𝗵𝗃𝗀 out of the bathroom so she can get a cold shower. "I've been training strong under Gunhead and he's been doing a good job at helping me get my fighting style to be better and more suited for how I want to fight," said Ochako, breaking the tension in the room. Just then 𝗵𝗃𝗀 walked out of the bathroom wearing the same outfit she arrived in. "Hey, did you guys hear that UA is gonna be a dorms?" Yeah, I wonder what that's gonna be like. I hope it'll be fun, said Izuku. Hopefully Nezu doesn't F us all over somehow. Just then Izuku's phone went off on the side of the hospital bed. Sadistic rat. You wish. Oh, I just remembered something, said Momo before she looked at Izuku. How were you able to use water? Izuku sighed and went on to explain about how he had a quirk awakening, giving how different his quirk is, and that Fox even said that it's possible for him to unlock more quirks down the line depending on what happens. Luckily the girls understood it, and they all then just stayed there for a couple more hours until Izuku was released, and then they all left with Himiko and Ochako giving him a heated embrace, making the others jealous. Izuku flew back to Might Tower in Tokyo and saw Toshinori sitting behind his desk going over some paperwork. Hey Toshi, how's it going? Said Izuku, walking towards his older brother figure. Izuku, it's going good. I just got done signing some paperwork, also for the rest of the able to use his flames and one for all. Before he could dwell deeper into this, the door opened, revealing Shoka, whose eyes lit up seeing that Izuku was up and awake. Hello 𝗵𝗲, how are you feeling? She asked, closing the door and walking towards him. I'm feeling fine Todoroki, just trying to figure out why I was able to produce water during Hosu, said Izuku, racking his brain for answers. Shoka started playing a piece of her red hair and thought, maybe you always could but your body wasn't ready. I guess that could be a possibility. Or maybe I awakened another quirk. Oh well, I'm sure I'll figure it out eventually. I'm sure you will also. A very tiny hint of red appeared on Shoka's cheeks. My mom is here in this hospital and I was wondering if you would come with me to go and see her. She'd really like to meet you. Izuku looked at her in slight shock, since this is the first time he has ever seen Shoka embarrassed, but a smile appeared on his face. Sure thing Todoroki, I'd like to. Good, once the doctor clears you, let's go. Just then the door opened again and a dog-headed man entered the room. So you're Izuku 𝗵𝗲, said the dog-headed police chief, walking towards him. I gotta say, if All Might didn't give you permission, you could be imprisoned right now. What, why? Said Izuku with slight annoyance in his voice. You seriously injured Stain, multiple broken bones, burns and severe BLD loss. That right, that would have gotten your hero career ruined before you even got started. Also, not to mention the property damage you did when you used your water quirk. It flooded massive areas and destroyed lots of property along with your fire, said the police chief. For the water, it's because I awakened another quirk and the fire damage. I don't know what you're talking about. I have extremely good control over my flames, up to the point it's all subconscious for me to do. Not from what I heard. From Endeavor's report, you caused most of the fire damage, but he is willing to take the blame if you become his students, said the police chief. It immediately clicked for Izuku in that moment. This police chief was in Endeavor's pocket and cared more for his control and money than doing what was right. That is a lying, said Shoka. I was there with my father and he did all the fire damage while 𝗵𝗲 took care of all the raging flames. Look, I don't know why you're trying to pin the blame on your father, but I have multiple witnesses who all agree with Endeavor saying that 𝗵𝗲 here was the one who did it, said the chief. Well, in that case I'll be seeing you in court. You must now leave me alone. I have nothing else to say to Endeavor's new pets, said Izuku. The chief's eyes narrowed before he stomped off, leaving the two teens. I'm sorry about my father. He's trying to force you to marry and impregnate me, said Shoka, looking down. Izuku looked at her and reached over and gently rubbed the top of her head, which made her gasp and look at him. It's okay Todoroki, it's not your fault and I don't blame you. I just blame the walking burning trash can that's your sperm donor. A warm smile appeared on her face hearing that. Shoka. Please call me Shoka, she said as she looked away to try and hide her blush, as she also played with her red hair again. Okay Shoka. Her teeth felt warm and fuzzy hearing him call her that, but then she remembered something. Oh right, we were gonna go and see my mom. Oh right, let's go then, said Izuku, standing up and following her out his room towards Rei Todoroki's. Elsewhere in the hospital, the Hosu police chief informed Endeavor that Izuku didn't agree and said he'll go to court if need be. Endeavor was furious and he ended the call before he informed his driver to take him to the hospital. He had to make a visit to his wife to make face and to talk to Izuku. Knock knock, mom, it's me. Rei stood up and ran to the door and quickly opened the door and immediately wrapped her arms her daughter. But then she realized she was hugging a very warm muscular 𝗧𝗕 and fear entered her body and she was too scared to let go in fear it was him, and he'd use it to beat her again. A warm kind voice said as he gently put one of his arms around her and gently patted her back. Rei then realized it wasn't him, and he was warm, but this warmth was so different. Instead of it being a powerful oppressive heat that burned everything in its path, it was a warmth that you would want to cuddle up to and stay warm on cold winter nights. She slowly looked up and stared into a deep crimson and golden eyes that looked down at her gray eyes. They held so much hope and warmth, and she didn't know why, but she wanted to stay in this warmth that made her feel at peace instead of fear. "Mom, this is Izuku Shimura," said Shoka, appearing behind him and looking at her mom and noticing that she was looking at Izuku. Rei's face heated up and gently stepped back. "Oh, I'm so sorry about that. My name is Rei and it's a pleasure to meet you." Izuku smiled. "It's nice to meet you. What should I call you since I don't want to call you Just call me Rei," she said with a warm smile. "Okay, Rei. Also it's a pleasure to meet you and I see where Shoka gets her beauty from," said Izuku. Shoka's face became neon as her quirk activated and one half of her caught on fire while the other was covered in ice. Rei's own face became heated and a feeling she has long since forgotten came back to her. The feeling of getting compliments and genuine care were very nice and comforting for her. "So, Shimura, tell me a bit about yourself. Shoka told me some things but I'd like to learn more about you," said Rei. "Sure," said Izuku as they all went and sat on the small couch with Izuku being squished in the middle of it. "Well, let's see, what would you like to know about me first?" How about what you like to do, your dreams and your hobbies?" Shoka leaned in very slightly as she made sure to remember everything Izuku will say. "I like to train and spend time with my girlfriends and daughter." You have a daughter?" Izuku looked at Rei's shocked face and nodded his head. "Yep, I have an adopted daughter named Eri. She's very sweet and caring and is honestly too sweet for this world, and she's gotten into the habit of copying most things I do." "That's because she's your secret love child," said Shoka before she received a chop on the head from Izuku which made her grab her head and pout. "She isn't my secret love child, Shoka, and also I'm not All Might's secret love child either. I will uncover the truth," she said with determination which made Rei giggle seeing how her daughter is. Izuku just sighed before he continued, "My dreams are to become the #1 hero in the world and try to make a world where everyone is happy. I know it's an impossible dream, but I want to try and accomplish it. For my hobbies it's reading, cooking, and learning about new quirks. I'm sure if you try your hardest, Shimura, you will achieve your dreams," said Rei. "I hope so. So how about you tell me about yourself?" Rei looked down, unsure really what to say or do. It's been well over 16 years since she's done anything like this. "Well, I don't really have a dream at all. But I like to read a lot as it helps pass the time, and I really like flowers. And I don't have any hobbies," she said sadly. "Those are all good things to like, and don't worry, once you're out of this hospital I'll help you find a dream," said Izuku, "and I'm sure Shoka will also." "Weak, you won't be training with me," said All Might. "Oh, who will I be training with?" said Izuku. "Well, Nezu told me that I'm not allowed to say, though I do wish you luck." Before Izuku could say anything, the door was kicked open and off its hinges, embedding itself in the wall. "All right, you little SHT, let's get to training. Nezu said I'd get an entire truckload worth of carrots, so I ain't saying no to that," said Miruko, entering the room with Ryukyu behind her. "Rumi, must you always kick every door open?" said Ryuko towards her longtime friend. "If it's in my way, then yes." Rumi walked right up to Izuku, and she was almost a foot shorter than him, with her ears reaching his forehead and her red eyes stared right into his crimson and gold eyes. "Hey, you smell pretty good," said Rumi with a grin appearing on her face. Ryuko also smelled the air and she had to admit he did smell good. Thank you. Also, I heard that you fought the hero killer. So let's spar, and if you win I'll offer you something, and if I win you gotta do whatever I say for the day," said Rumi with her foot thumping. "What would I win?" said Izuku curiously, since if she was offering money then he'd say no. He would say yes to a autograph though. "Rumi, we're just here to train," said Ryuko. "Please forgive her, she loves fighting and is hoping to fight you." "Oh, it's okay, my best friend is like that but much angrier. If you win you get to go on a date with me and Ryuko," said Rumi, making her best friend blush. "Rumi. He's a teenager. And We're both 24 and besides Nezu said something about age of consent or something, besides we need a good man. What is going on with my life also fu Nezu? So how about it? Wanna spar and see if you can go on a date with 2 hot heroines? Said Rumi with a massive grin, just so you know I won't go easy. Well, I'll definitely take you up on the spar since you two will be teaching me and for the date you'll have to ask my girlfriends, said Izuku. Girlfriends? Well, if you got more than one then they should have no problem adding 2 more hotties, said Rumi. Ryuko was blushing in both embarrassment and anger at her friend. Rumi was a good friend but after her conversation about both of them needing to find someone Rumi took it literally and is now looking for someone that's strong, brave, funny, likes to fight, caring and can cook for both of them to date. After that conversation Nezu told them about a student who needed training and now they are here. 3 days later. This is your dorms, said Aizawa in a deadpan voice, also where's Shimura? He got held up in training but he's on his way, said Ochako who was putting Aries' hair into 2 buns since she said, I wanna be like mom today. Himiko promptly passed out from cuteness overload hearing that. Well in that case here's the list, said Aizawa. The class looked up and one thing stood out for them all. Izuku shared his room with Eri and they had Ochako and Himiko on both sides of his room and across from it was Mina, Momo and some girl named Albedo. Sir, who's Albedo? Said Momo curiously. She's our new student, she'll be arriving tomorrow since her flight was delayed, said Aizawa. Anyways you have till Tuesday which is 3 days away so relax of whatever till then. He then left leaving the class to their own devices as Momo asked them all to help her make a chore list so they could all have a system. Not too long after Mei showed up and began pestering Katsuki since Izuku hasn't arrived yet. An hour later Izuku walked into the dorms with a bruise on his cheek from the amount of fighting Rumi made them all do. Papa! Yelled Eri as she ran as fast as her little legs could let her. Izuku saw her running to him and kneeled down catching his daughter and pulling her up into a hug. Hey Snowball, how are you? I missed you Papa. And I'm doing really good, look what mommy did to my hair. Izuku saw that Eri's hair were in 2 buns much like Himiko's. Wow, it looks really pretty on you Eri, said Izuku as he her cheek making her giggle. Papa, can I spend the day with you? Yes you can sweetie. Everyone then saw them and most of them began asking him questions about his training and him fighting the hero killer along with his new quirk. Izuku answered them all and then they went on with the day with Izuku having to make dinner since he was last to show up. As Izuku was cooking the steaks the doors were kicked open. Shimura, you owe us a date. Screamed Miruko walking into the room wearing casual clothing along with Ryuko who was following behind her. Date? All the girls that liked him internally screamed. Oh, we're adding 2 more to his charm. Cool, said Mei looking over before she went back to the anime called Cyberpunk Edgerunners. If they are both dating my papa, does that make them both my new moms? Said Eri before she bit into her apple. Why meat, thought Izuku.